What up, what up? Time to get lit. We're in the White House again. I got my crystals. I got my crystals in the White House. Thank you. I want to thank all my crystals for delivering me this election. I'm here because of you, crystals that I keep in my pocket. That song was called America. So I thought we were going to get some Star Spangled Banner level America music, and alas, no, we didn't. We got hype workout, which I guess is appropriate. We got what it feels like to work a 12-hour shift on speed. Dun, 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 dun. Welcome, everybody. I have one thing to say to y'all. Oops. I have one thing to say to y'all. Oops. I have one thing to say to y'all.
This is gold, straight up.
I need to figure out why I still can't play sound bites on this screen. Let's take a look. See. Maybe it's the alert. Let's see. No, that's there. Regardless, this is gold straight up.
This is gold, straight up.
We are going to be talking today exclusively about Marianne Williamson. Okay, she's an interesting person. She's been on my list. I have a list. I have a whole literal notebook. A literal notebook with a literal inspo quote on it, okay? Where I write down all the people I want to talk about at some point. And she's been on it for a long time. People have sent me stuff. People asked me, can you cover her? And when I was looking into Gabby Bernstein, and I made the video that I made about Gabby Bernstein, she came up quite a bit because Gabby Bernstein is mentored or was mentored by Marianne Williamson. So she also came up a lot with guess who? Oh, I have some new sound bites. Guess who also is associated with Marianne Williamson? Louise Hay, the gift that never stops giving. That's what I have to say. Louise, rest in peace. She is sorry. but this book is really bad. Louise Hay, if you will remember, or if you haven't seen the video that I made about this book specifically, Louise Hay was an old lady at the time when she died. She was like in her 80s. And she was one of the grandmothers, the godmothers of the self-help, spirituality, woo-woo nonsense industry. She is dead, like I said. However, her legacy lives on through her very successful publishing house. So, and guess who is publishing their books through Hay House? Marianne Williamson. So there's many connections, including back in the AIDS epidemic time frame where Louise Hay really rose to prominence. Marianne Williamson also was right by her side. So there's a lot to dissect and discuss. But first, Dave Kelly, thank you so much, Dave Kelly, with the super chats at the beginning. I really appreciate it. Dave Kelly says, is Marianne the only hippie? She is the OG hippie. Rachel wishes. Also, just for the record, I definitely 100% believe that Rachel Hollis will be voting for Marianne Williamson in the next election. 100% guaranteed she will be voting for her. The way that her ideology has now morphed into what it is, Marianne Williamson is like the perfect candidate for her. So for that, I say, God damn it. Sorry. Will I learn my lesson? No.
Am I the only hippie?
She is the only hippie. Rachel, do you have anything else to say?
I'm a big time hippie and I'm very woo woo.
She's so woo-woo. She's also cuckoo.
I'm going to send you so much love and so much light and so much good energy today because I feel like you need it.
And that one's for you, Dave Kelly. I appreciate it. Also, here's another little soundbite that I downloaded from last stream.
I've been an alpha female.
There you go. You know who else is an alpha female? Marianne Williamson. Okay, so let's take a look. Let's take a gander. We're already on the page. Here she is. Like I said, she's in her 70s now, her early 70s, and she's been in politics. Well, she has never held office. Let's just get there. She has run a couple unsuccessful campaigns, and I tend to have a belief that she purposely runs unsuccessful campaigns because she could run locally. She could run for a mayorship, a commissioner seat. She could run for state office, yet she chooses president, and congresswoman in a district where the congressman had been there for like 40 years and was very well liked and was also a Democrat. And she said, I have no notes really. Like, he's a great guy. So she's running in elections against people who she has nothing really to disagree with on. So it's like, do you want to win or are you just going for airtime? Because that's my suspicion, that she would like to sell more books, more exposure. She got to be on the debate stage back in the 2019 for the 2020 election. So yeah, I just have my doubts that her political aspirations are like, she's expecting them to be fulfilled. Like, I don't believe that she is. So the brief overview is that she started off in self-help. She's a big time proponent, and this is in the thumbnail. We're going to talk about it quite a bit on this episode. A Course in Miracles. Now, this is like self-help spirituality. It's not even self-help more. It is, but it's more, we're dipping our toe more into the woo-woo side of things today. A Course in Miracles is a book that this psychotherapist, I think is the title, wrote back in like the 80s. Now, that woman claims that she, you know how they all say, how Gabby Bernstein has said many times, how a lot of these woo-woo people say, I'm just the conduit. I'm just the vessel that writes down the words for me. It's not me thinking it. So if they get canceled, they're like, it wasn't me, it was my spirit guide. Her spirit guide, so not Marianne Williamson, but the person who wrote the book, A Course in Miracles, her name's Helen something. It was Jesus, okay? Jesus spoke to her in her head and said, write this down and commercialize it and sell it to people in the book market. You know, very typical behavior in this industry, unfortunately. So basically A Course in Miracles is like Jesus's mistakes, essentially. So he's correcting the record because, the Bible didn't get it all right, according to this woman, that he got some things right, but he's got some amendments to make, and he's going to pick this random woman named Helen to deliver that message for us. There is hold on, let me pull up. I got a little, because this is sort of the basis as to, about a lot of what we're going to talk about, because this is what her life philosophy is based on. And I think it's important that we explore it a little bit. I had it pulled up where it was like a video about A Course in Miracles. And she also, this is just a side note, and I put it in the description of this video. She also wrote a book. Marianne has written many, many books. Many of them have become New York Times bestsellers, of course, in self-help and about spirituality. But one of them is A Course in Weight Loss. And this is like the ornate cover of the book. So if you feel like you're spiritually overweight, well, we have a solution for you. And you will actually lose pounds because, that's the only thing that we can really do these days is lose weight for Jesus. Okay, A Course in Miracles. So, summarized. I found the thing, every time I go for one clip, I always lose it. Okay, so basically it's like a Bible version. Let's see. Explained. And again, it was, here it is. All the videos are like of the lowest quality, just FYI. Just FYI. HD VAP. Okay. An overview of its philosophy. You don't have to watch the whole thing, but it's like the editing is like so like, oh, here's some Google images that I found, but we'll just watch it real quick. All right, actually, well, maybe this guy's better. And this is just a side note on this whole thing, but it is sort of setting the basis for what she believes in and what she preaches and what she's made her life fortune on.
If you've been on any kind of spiritual path for any amount of time, you must have run across either references to or quotes from A Course in Miracles, either from Marianne Williamson or Eckhart Tolle or Neil Donald Walsh. All of those incredible teachers reference A Course in Miracles consistently and always. And there is a really good reason why they do. We're going to talk about that today. But before we do that, I want to say welcome to my channel. My name is
this guy's from Ireland.
I'm a spiritual teacher. I'm also intuitive. And this channel is...
Are you an empath too? Okay. He's doing a very long intro. Okay, here, let's skip that. What is Miracles?
A Course in Miracles is a spiritual mind training. It works very much on our psychology so that we can end up finding the inner peace that we know we have. A Course in Miracles is really a non-duality teaching, meaning that non-duality is all about there is only love, there is only God, there is only peace. Everything that is not of that is an illusion. Now, I know that that's really hard to accept when you look around and you see wars and you see arguments and you see craziness in the world.
But just gaslight yourself to believe that all of that is a lie and that you somehow started the war in Ukraine yourself by believing a little bit wrong and not positively. So yeah, so similar to The Secret in the way of if you have negative thoughts, negative things will happen to you. If you have positive thoughts will come to you. And if you mess up or if something good happens to you and you are in a bad mood, well, I guess something else is going on, I guess, or just don't think about that. Like if you had the worst day ever and then you won $1 million, like just don't question it, just accept it. And if the opposite happens, you like were praying all day long and good vibes only and whatever, and something bad happens to you, you must have secretly, unconsciously done something wrong. So, the book can never be wrong.
From the Course in Miracles point of view, what we're trying to do is we're trying to see that all of those things are projections of our own making. All of those things are projections of our own making from what the Course would call the ego or the egoic mind. All of us have an egoic mind, that is for sure. And what the Course is trying to help us do is to actually, when you have an ego mind, and then you have your true self, which is yourself that's always connected to love, always connected to God, and is never, ever, ever split.
Okay, so that's a decent explanation. It's very basic. Good vibes only. That's it. Your only love. And that's how Marianne is going to become president and lead the presidency, is through love. Now, people who aren't involved in self-help in any way, they probably came across Marianne, obviously, through the election. And she's run... This is her second time running for president and third time running for national office. She ran for Congress in 2014. And she got a lot of, not support. It was like sort of fake support, if that makes sense. So not like, oh, I'm going to vote for this woman because she is like presidential material necessarily, but she said some kooky-ish things at one of the debates, and we're going to play some clips. And one of them that stands out to me is they asked her, what are you going to do the first day you take office? You know, and usually in these debates, and I don't think like, oh, I love presidential debates and they're so wonderful and she just did a bad job. I think they're, you know, all performative and bullshit and boring anyways. But she's like, usually in that question you would put your number one campaign platform priority, like day one, I'm coming in and doing X, Y, Z. But she said the first thing she would do is call up the Prime Minister of New Zealand and tell her, girlfriend, something like, girlfriend, you got a challenge because we're going to have the best kids in America. I was like, huh? What are you talking about? So people are like, that was weird. So this is some of those best moments. And one of them is that one I just said, it butchered basically, but she'll say it better. But yeah, it was sort of like, who is this woman? What is she talking about? What's going on? Some people were like, you know, her fans, and people who liked what she had to say were supportive, but she didn't even stay in the race long enough to go into like the actual voting period. So she ended up stepping down and supporting Bernie Sanders before there was ever really any chance for her to win. I mean, that's what she's gonna, in this election cycle, her big push is like, there's no reason why I can't win. There's no reason, like, why aren't you giving me a chance? And I think there's some truth to that, but at the same time, it's like, there is your party, which you're running on as a Democrat, is the incumbent in office. It's typical that they're not going to put the president who's already there in the office, leading the party as well from the White House, against a person who has never polled higher than like 1%. For what reason? Like to make him look worse and then have the opposing party come in. So she's going to say it's like not democratic. And I understand that. I get what she's saying. But at the same time, it's like not realistic. And it's sort of, if you are truly a part of the party, like you wouldn't want to debate the person who's already, you know, going to be probably up for re-election. Anyways, it's not like, oh, it's some conspiracy, which I think is kind of what she alludes to sometimes. Like, it's a conspiracy to keep me out of the election. It's like, no, this is just how it works, unfortunately. Okay, so this is not recently, because this is obviously, there's no, you know, debates right now going on the Democratic side, but this is from 2019, June, and this is after, I think this is the first debate when there was the most candidates. So here we go. Here's what she has to say.
I'm going to harness love for political purposes. I will meet you on that field, and sir, love will win. I have had a career harnessing the inspiration and the motivation and the excitement of people.
Thank you,
masses of people.
What is that first issue your presidency?
My first call is to Prime Minister of New Zealand, who said that her goal is to make New Zealand the place where it's the best place in the world for a child to grow up. And I will tell her, girlfriend, you are so on, because the United States of America is going to be the best place in the world for a child to grow up.
Okay, there you go. Girlfriend, it is so on. That's the best. That's the best line I have heard all day when I heard that. Girlfriend, you are on.
This is gold, straight up.
That's gold, straight up. Okay.
If somebody has a younger body doesn't mean you don't have old ideas. I'll tell you one thing. It's really nice if we've got all these plans, but if you think we're going to beat Donald Trump by just having all these plans, you got another thing coming. Because he didn't win by saying he had a plan. He won by simply saying, make America great again. We've got to get deeper than just these superficial fixes, as important as they are.
The issue is who has the guts to take on.
John Kennedy did not say, I have a plan to get a man to the moon, and so we're going to do it, and I think we can all work together,
The music
and
is
maybe
so
we get a
funny.
man on the moon. John Kennedy said, by the end of this decade, we are going to put a man on the moon. Because John Kennedy was back in the day when politics included the people, and included imagination, and included great.
So the one thing I've noticed when she does interviews, and I haven't watched, we're going to watch, we'll see how much we get through and how interesting it is, but she did an interview that was pretty controversial with Russell Brand, and that's someone who I also want to cover in the future, and it pains me to say that because I used to like Russell Brand so much, and this was when I was in my phase of self-help and spirituality, so it makes sense, but he has changed even from back then. Like, I've changed obviously greatly, but he has changed completely as a person and as a commentator. He's always been out there in the sense of, like, you know, quantum physics and all that stuff that, like, is meaningless, but and, you know, doing retreats and that sort of thing and meditating and all that. But he now has gone so far into the other side of, like, right-wing politics, and he would say he's not, but from what I've heard, and, you know, I find him to nitpick and cherry pick certain topics to focus on as of late. And he didn't used to do that from my memory, but we're going to watch that. But yeah, let's watch a couple more highlights from her just to see. But, like, she said nothing of basic value or concrete plans. A lot of it, and we'll see more of her talking to the media where it's like, you know, what would you do or what do you believe? And she sort of kind of gets caught up or tricked up, and she starts coughing, and she's got an awkward presence, in my opinion. She's sort of like, and so there's some authenticity to that, like actual authenticity, I believe, where she's sort of owning up to not really having an idea about certain things. But at the same time, for a political office, you kind of need to know where you stand. And that's why there is so much prep work that goes into these public appearances.
Great dreams and included great plans. Because, ladies and gentlemen, we don't have a health care system in the United States. We have a sickness care system in the United States. We just wait till somebody gets sick, and then we talk about who's going to pay for the treatment and how they're going to be treated. What we need to talk about is why so many Americans have unnecessary chronic illnesses, so many more compared to other countries. And that gets back into not just the big pharma, not just health insurance companies. It has to do with chemical policies. It has to do with environmental policies. It has to do with food policies. It has to do with drug policies.
Thank you. What is the first?
Okay, and that's something that we're going to talk about too. She has she walks the line of vaccines. Now, I know that's a hot button issue, but she definitely has said things that puts doubt into minds about vaccines and their efficacy and why so many vaccines are going on. But then we'll say, but I believe in it for, you know, this reason or that reason. And we'll watch a coronavirus meditation that she did in 2020. And even in that, before the vaccines were a thing for COVID-19, she was saying, you know, we need to get one. But then I think because her community most likely was, you know, sort of through this whole thing turned against it, or, you know, is more into the natural healing, she kind of re-picked that up. So it seems it's confusing because there's not one, she flip-flops a lot on that issue. Another one, this is a big part of her controversy, is that clinical depression is a scam, and that people who are put on antidepressants, you know, they're just having an off day. They shouldn't be treated for mental illness. And she got a lot of pushback for that, and I think rightly so. And, you know, she backtracked a little bit and said, well, I never said anything about schizophrenia or, you know, bipolar or whatever. And clinical depression, like, yeah, of course there's those people, but, like, some things don't need medication. It's like, okay, but are you a doctor? Like, I don't know. Do we need more stigma against it? Is that the right thing to put people who may be already apprehensive to seek out medical help and mental health help, to feel like just get over it and pray and meditate more. Like, I just think that's the wrong move, especially when you're no expert. And like, well, she's like, I never, have been depressed, or I've been depressed, but like, I wouldn't consider it that big of a deal. It's like, okay, good for you, lady. Good for you, girlfriend. You don't speak for everyone else. Like, how about you make a system, or we make a system as a society where everyone has access and then they can decide for themselves. Like, I don't know. She sort of equates the opioid epidemic to overprescription of depression medication, which I find to be an unfair comparison, or like they're just like the same. It's like, I think there's a difference between, people getting physically addicted to opioids and what's going on now, to like people going on Zoloft for, a period of time or forever. I don't know. I just see those, like, you're not going to overdose on Zoloft. I don't think. Maybe you can, but I don't think it's the same. It's not fair to say like they're the same thing. It's like, no, it's not. Josephine, thank you so much. Josephine Henry chooses a Shiba dog, writing with a brush, writing number 1 on a piece of paper. You are number 1, and I will reveal now another fun new soundbite right now.
Priceless, juicy nuggets.
That's what I'll be eating for dinner tonight. What will I be eating for dinner tonight, you ask once again?
Priceless, juicy nuggets.
And then what will I have for dessert?
Deep belly laughs.
Oh man, Craig. If you haven't watched the stream from last week, go watch the stream after this. You'll find Craig to be a funny character. And I looked into him a little bit to find out how the heck this guy has 5 million subscribers on his podcast. I am more confused now than I was before. Like, where did this guy come from? How does he have these guests on? I'm assuming he pays for them, but how does he have money? Many, many questions. Anyways, thank you, Josephine. I appreciate that. Okay, so let's go back. This is what is the first relationship you'd like to reset as president? Okay.
What is the first relationship you like to reset as president? I'm going to go down the line, and I'll start with Ms. Williamson.
Well, one of my first phone calls would be to call the European leaders and say, we're back. I'm sorry we haven't talked more tonight about how we're going to beat Donald Trump. I have an idea about Donald Trump. Donald Trump is not going to be beaten just by insider politics talk. He's not going to be beaten just by somebody who has plans. He's going to be beaten by somebody who has an idea what this man has done. This man has reached into the psyche of the American people, and he has harnessed fear for political purposes. So, Mr. President, if you're listening, I want you to hear me, please. You have harnessed fear for political purposes, and only love can cast that out. So sir, I have a feeling you know what you're doing. I'm going to harness love for political purposes. I will meet you on that field, and sir, love will win.
Thank you.
Okay, she's gonna cast a love spell on Donald Trump. Good luck, ma'am. Okay, so that's just like a little preview as to what her performance was in the debate that year. And she was, sort of not exiled, but people didn't take her seriously. And I tend to think like, well, if I said girlfriend, I don't know, to the New Zealand prime minister, I think that sort of does take away a little bit of your credibility. It's sort of like, that's what you came up with. But, she dropped out on her own. So basically she dropped out, and then she was upset though, because during that race, there were several women candidates, and they did a spread in Vogue with these candidates, but did not include her. And so she felt that was unfair, which it sort of is unfair because she was on the debate stage. So it's sort of like weird that they wouldn't have included her. But then the New York Times did like an article about it, and they said that it was before she had announced her run, and that it was something with the dates. And so it really wasn't like a personal thing, but who knows? Okay. So let's go into the mental health stuff. Let's just jump around a little bit. I've said that her platform has been, she said before that depression is a scam, and then she sort of backtracked on that. But she has a sort of complicated relationship with mental health. And part of that is, I think, her beliefs and, Louise Hay's beliefs, because that was her, comrade, is that, it's all in your head. like depression's not real, cancer's not real. If you have an emotional issue going on that you're refusing to look at, and that's what's causing these physical ailments. So I haven't watched this yet, but it says, this is from, well, it's on her Instagram, but it's from the Gravel Institute. It says, America faces a mental health crisis, but what is it about our society that causes people to be so depressed, so anxious, so sad? Okay, and this is something that when I was doing this research, Marianne and I have a lot of things that we believe in common, which I found to be concerning. I was like, oh well, is this good or bad? But then I feel like she almost is like hiding a little bit of her truth underneath the surface. And that's what sort of like scares me. Or she's not saying everything. She's saying the right things in public, but I believe that she truly has deeper thoughts where she'll say like, of course, depression could be real. But then deep down, she's like, well, I really do believe though that, you know, it's all just a made up thing. And, you know, you could be healed if you really wanted to without help, which is like, okay, so which one is it? You can't really have both of those beliefs at the same time. I know I have so many tabs. I have so much. I looked at a lot today. Okay, so let's hear from her, what she has to say about the mental health crisis. And also cause and effect. Like, I agree that we have a lot of mental health problems in this country because of our hustle culture, because of, you know, the families that refuse to allow kids to go to therapy and the stigma against getting help early and, you know, a culture of trying to hide who you are. And there's a lot of things that contribute. But at the same time, it's like, okay, but we can't really fix that, especially as one person. So we need to deal with the outcomes now. And then of course, yes, let's work on the root cause too, but just don't blame everyone individually for their choices all the time and then do nothing to fix what's happened. You know, it's like, I can see your point of view, but also like, who cares at a certain point? Let's solve the crisis first and then go backwards. But anyways, okay, here we go.
Or depressed,
Hold on.
anxious, tired.
She's got a weird voice. How do I make this?
Tell me one thing. Do you feel sad?
Yeah.
Or maybe lonely?
Yeah.
Or depressed?
Yeah.
Anxious, tired?
Yeah.
Burnt out?
Yeah.
Full of dread or despair?
Yeah.
Maybe you feel alienated from other people,
Yeah.
like you're apart or adrift.
Yeah.
If so, you are not alone. Everyone, practically everyone, is feeling the same way.
Thanks.
They are the dominant feelings of our time. You've probably heard this described as a mental health crisis. And that's true. Something has gone wrong with our heads, with our mental health. Something is out of whack.
What is it?
Just take a look at the world around us. We live in an age of overwhelming atomization. More and more people report that they feel deeply lonely.
Okay, waiting for the solution. Waiting for your take on, okay, I'm with you. Now what?
Americans, especially young Americans, report having fewer friends and fewer romantic partners or meaningful connections than did people of past generations.
Yeah.
Perhaps not coincidentally,
McDonald's
rates
fault.
of depression and anxiety and of behaviors associated with them are going up.
Okay.
Way up.
And?
More people than ever are using antidepressant
Specifically from Kmart.
medications like SSRIs. And more people are committing suicide or considering it. In June 2020,
It's like, okay, it's almost like an essay where it's like, I'm writing a persuasive essay to convince you of something, but I'm just going to tell you that this is a really big problem. And I'm like, yeah, I'm with you. The first sentence, I was like, yep, I know this is a big problem. And it's like, she's trying to convince us, like, this is a problem. I was like, I'm aware. How are we going to fix it? Did you know that statistics, like, yep. And?
a quarter of young Americans seriously considered committing suicide. Suicides and drug overdoses, classified as deaths of despair, have become so common that they have driven down American life expectancy from its peak in 2014. By 2021.
Also, she made a comment that she believes that depression medication, so SSRIs, like she mentioned, is the cause of suicide. She made well, you can look at it. She deleted it, but she made a comment about Kate Spade, who passed away, and by that, and let me say it, by suicide. She killed herself. If you didn't know that, sorry. Trigger warning already passed. My bad. I guess it's already in here. So if you're already here, I'm sorry. And she said, well, how many more? Oh, where's the tweet? I think it's here. Let's see. Okay, yeah, so she deleted it, so we had to go back to the way back machine. But her original tweet was, and this is from 2018, how many public personalities on antidepressants have to hang themselves before the FDA does something? Big Pharma cops to what it knows, and the average person stops falling for this? The tragedies keep compounding. The awakening should begin. I don't know where we knew that Kate Spade, unless they knew each other personally, was on antidepressants. Okay. And then someone says, antidepressants saved my life 20 years ago. So this kind of blanket statement I find very troubling. You are just adding to the stigma. I'm all for a coherent conversation on the matter. And then she responded, there was no stigma to depression until it was medicalized. Okay. When was it first medicalized? Like in the 1800s? Okay. If you yourself were helped, that's wonderful, but it doesn't change the fact that most antidepressants are being prescribed by doctors who aren't even mental health professionals, and many times when people are simply sad. Okay. And then he responded back and said, you said, quote, but it doesn't change the fact that most antidepressants are being prescribed by doctors who aren't even medical health professionals. On this, you and I agree. I had a psychiatrist and a psychologist when prescribed my SSRI. And she responds again and says, and that is the coherent conversation. It's not their use per se, but their obvious overprescription that is causing such a stir. There is a spectrum of normal human despair that is not a mental illness and shouldn't be treated as if it is. Now, okay. Now she deleted it, so I guess she's changed her mind, or she feels like this isn't good to get elected. But I don't know where the proof is that there's over prescription. Like in the pain pill mill epidemic, which I lived through living in Florida, and people were like lining up outside of pain pills like every day for that year that they were like unregulated, and they were regulated but very poorly. And people were coming from all these different states to pick up like oxycodone. I mean, yes, I think they were arresting people and doctors for opening up these, they were legal, but they were like horrendously overprescribing. Like, oh, I have like a pain in my back, and they'd give them like such a large dose, and it was sort of like this side business that some sketchy people were running. That's one thing, but that and then it got shut down, pretty quickly. But that's sort of a whole different story. But she's conflating those two issues and being like, it's the same thing. It's like, it's not the same thing. It's a very different thing. And again, we already know there's so much stigma against it. So, okay, so she's basically inferring here that Kate Spade was on antidepressants and that drove her to kill herself. Is that not like putting fear into the minds of people who may be struggling with like actual depressive episodes, or clinical depression or depression of any kind? And it's not your fucking business. Like, if I feel sad and I go to a doctor, and it's like, probably people can't get into psychiatrists because they're so booked out, and that there's no good mental health care system in this country that's affordable for a lot of people. So you're on a waiting list to get in with someone. Okay, you can get into your regular physician, or you can get into a different doctor, and they prescribe you. I don't know. Is that the worst thing in the world? Are they giving you like Oxycontin, or are they giving you Zoloft, like an SSRI? I'm not a doctor either, but as someone who has used, antidepressants on and off for most of my life, I, also think it's helped me live a more productive, healthy life when I've needed them. And I've been off of them because I feel like, oh, I'm feeling better. I don't want to be so tired and whatever. And I, have, not that I had bad side effects. I was just like, I want to see how I feel without them. And then I'll get back on them if I need it. It's like, I don't know why that has to be her business, or she needs to tell me like, this is a dangerous thing. It's like, show me the source and maybe I'll believe you. But it's a very dangerous thing to say, and not even dangerous. It's just stupid. It's like, this is your opinion. And of course, like if you think about this really in a capitalistic sense, she's accusing like the pharmacies of overprescribing and the psychiatrists from overprescribing. Okay, so what's her solution though to this is like, read my book, do my meditations. You're just sad and I can guide you through that. So it's like, oh, you're trying to siphon away people who might just be better off getting on medication to now join your, pseudo-science bullshit cult, lessons, teachings, so that they, trick themselves into thinking like, oh, I don't need help. I just need this woman's teachings. Sounds like a business plan to me. Here it is. This is what I was looking for earlier. This is her talking about A Course in Miracles. This is from her own, actually, we'll come back to this because we're sort of talking about the depression part. So let's see. There was one where, okay, here's a little preview. I have the whole podcast pulled up, but this is a roadmap out of depression, talking to a millionaire comedian. Okay, so just keep that in mind. These are the people. I'm assuming she's also a millionaire at this point. She's been so, famous and successful and best-selling author for many, many, many decades. So 2 millionaires discussing how to get out of depression. So just keep that at top of mind. And it said, okay, so there's subtitles. I'll try to move out of the way a little bit. It says, a roadmap out of depression if you had a heartbreak, a divorce. So let's see what they have to say.
If you had a heartbreak, a divorce, financial failure, bankruptcy, lost someone you loved, these things are painful, but they're not mental illnesses. And that's why in that book I write, this is what Buddhism says, this is what the Old Testament says, this is what the New Testament says. AA or anything else, that's why you keep coming back, because it's a rough day today. It's recognized it's a rough day today. It's recognized it's a rough day today. And if you're left on your own, God knows what your mind might lead you to do. So when you know principles, whatever your path is, and you practice them. So you asked about myself. Okay, Marianne, and I've lived 2 periods of time that by any means today would be called clinical depression. But even that's such a scam. All that means is somebody in a clinic said it. There is no blood test. Right. But if you've been there, you know it. Okay, Marianne, number one, you don't even think this is going to be done quickly. So none of this, like just, today people say, well, your mother died a month ago. Aren't you over it yet? No. Okay, it's going to take time.
Who says that, first of all? I don't think anyone actually says that. I think that's what people think like the expectation is, or they create that in their own mind because they are so focused on being positive all the time that when something negative happens to them, they project onto other people like, they all want me to be over it. It's like, no, that's, you want that. And you're saying it's everyone else, but yeah.
Number 2, who are the safe people who can accompany you on this? Who are the people who will bear witness to your agony during this time? What are the things that you're going to need to support you? Make sure you have a lot of bubble bath. Make sure you have a lot of bubble bath. Okay, let me go back. So now she's saying like, okay, so instead of just getting on a medication, this is the things you should do. Have a support system. Okay, but a lot of people, as she just did in the other video, millions of Americans feel lonely. Okay, so not everyone has a support system. So what am I supposed to just, in the depths of despair and depression, potentially, or a sad day, as she says it, compile a complete support system? So it's like, okay, take bubble bath. What if I don't own a home? What if I'm struggling to house myself? Like, there's so many layers to this. And especially when you're running as president, you got to think of everyone that could be under the American umbrella, under the American flag. There's not just millionaires that live in California and, go to retreats and take ayahuasca in Costa Rica. She's speaking for everyone. And it's like, I wish there would just be a little bit more of a acknowledgement of not everyone can afford bubble bath, really. And that's the problem here. No. Okay, it's going to take time. Number 2, who are the safe people who can accompany you on this? Who are the people who will bear witness to your agony during this time? What are the things that you're going to need to support you? Make sure you have a lot of bubble bath. Make sure that you stay with your meditation, even though you don't want to. Stay with your prayer work. Make sure you show up for other people. You will have a tendency to isolate during this period of time. You must not do that. You must get up and work. Your subconscious will put aside your despair while you're showing up for other people. And then when you come back from that, you'll go back to crying again. There is an art to navigating despair. There is an art to navigating depression, and the spiritual principles lead us there. There are seasons of life. I quote in that book from Rilke where he says, "Let me not squander the hour of my pain."
So it's like, yeah, ideally, yes, no one would need medication. No one would have any illnesses. Everyone would be happy and healthy and able to do all of those things. But that's not the world we live in. So it's like, let's be in reality instead of thinking like, I can just, imagine a life that's better for myself. And maybe that works for some people. But again, it's not blanket advice for everyone. And I think that's where she gets into some hot water, because she does have strong beliefs, but then again, like tries to backtrack and go, well, I don't know, maybe I didn't mean that. It's like, okay. So let's talk about that. Let's see her be confronted a little bit by some of these people who, there's a video it's called Why You're So Sad, but it's the same one that we were watching on Instagram. It's just longer. But she was showing us a lot of graphs and I'm like, I believe you. I believe you, lady. Okay. Oh, also, I didn't mention this at the top. She is Oprah's spiritual advisor. So Oprah strikes again. Oprah is always at the cusp of all of these grifters. Okay, so this is a good one, I thought. This is from MSNBC. Sorry if I'm being biased, but I did pull a Fox video too, so we just can be on both sides of the spectrum here. Okay, so this is 3 years ago when she was running for president in 2020, and it says, Marianne Williamson apologizes for calling depression a scam. I will give her credit here because she does apologize in a non-politician way and sort of takes ownership of it, and I was like, oh, okay, that's good. Again, though, I don't quite believe that she's fully in her own mind. Like, this is now a new belief that she has. I think this is like, someone on her team sort of told her like, back off. But again, like I said, where she kind of like coughs and stuff, she seems nervous in this one. It's kind of like an uncomfortable exchange, but let's watch.
But you want to be president. So there's questions about what you believe in your policies. Let me play for viewers something that you said that's gotten some real criticism about depression. Take a listen.
I've lived 2 periods of time that by any means today would be called clinical depression. But even that's such a scam. All that means is somebody in a clinic said it.
Should people take from that you don't believe there is real clinical depression? And how would you approach what doctors and science says is depression as part of mental health treatment if you were president?
Yes, that clip that you just showed was a podcast I did with Russell Brand. I think maybe I was trying to impress Russell Brand. I was speaking glibly. I was not a candidate yet. When I said that of itself is such a scam, but that was wrong of me to say, and I'm sorry that I said it. There is such a thing as serious depression, for which I'm sure that psychotherapeutic drugs are very, very helpful, even life-saving. And I certainly believe that about things such as bipolar and schizophrenia, things about which I would never weigh in on. However, what I have talked about and written about and stand behind is the idea that there has been a medicalization of what has traditionally been considered a spectrum of normal human despair. And about that, I feel that there is a very legitimate conversation in this country when you see, just the idea, as I've stated before, a divorce, a heartbreak because somebody that left or died, or you went through a financial hardship or a breakup, or you're in your 20s. These things are difficult, but they're not mental illness. And the idea of turning everything that is a sad day into a reason for such a quick jump and a knee-jerk jump that is often made today to the question of pharmaceuticals. I think that is a very legitimate questioning. We're living at a time when attorney generals all over this country are indicting indicting big pharmaceutical executives for their role in the opioid crisis. Predatory pharma is a serious, serious issue. It is a legitimate thing to talk about in our country. And I don't understand why anyone would think that now, given everything we know about the role of big pharmaceutical executives in the opioid crisis, why should we just assume that in every other area they're just the paragon of virtue and pure intent and concern for the common good? And if you add to that the lack of regulatory oversight that I think most Americans assume on the part of the FDA, for instance, 75% of the review process for drugs in our country is done by big pharma. So I think that the average American is coming to realize that the role of our regulatory agencies in many areas, not only having to do with big pharma, having to do with the environment. When you look at something like the EPA overturning the ban on the sale of pesticides that we know harm a child's brain simply because of, our current head of the EPA or the one before that, whether it was the chemical company executive, the oil company executive, met in a Houston hotel room with Dow chemical executives. There is, I would think that Americans would want a president who asks these questions and looks into these things deeply.
Okay, so there was a lot there, and I think as like a political advisor might tell her, you did good, cut it off. Like, what are you talking about? Like, no one knows, and I don't know, if you are like really clued into politics, you might know about like the pesticide in a Houston hotel or whatever. I don't know what the hell she's talking about, so I can't speak to that, and I think it almost sounds like conspiratorial, and maybe it's not. Maybe she's actually making a great point, but because of the way she's delivering it, it comes off as like, like I'm just gonna say everything and everything's a conspiracy. She does raise a couple good points. However, again, I think the big things that concern me with that is taking a depression medication is, the same thing as opioids, or even trying to conflate the two, I just find to be completely unfair. And secondly, yes, not that, I don't know, it's like the root cause. She's big into the root cause of mental health. It's like, yes, I agree. We should work on making a better world, making a place that, we're not needing to reach for these medications. I think that would be great. But at the same time, it's like, how are you going to do that? You're going to look at, prescription drug companies, and which I think is a great idea. More oversight, more regulations in certain areas. But again, like realistically, logistically, how does that work? And I don't know. I don't think she has a plan. She just says like, yeah, I think these things are over prescribed with no, real backing, brings up opioids, and then starts going off about pesticides. It's like, okay. And it all seems like in the same way that spirituality and these people who have sort of kind of gone like, I'm going to go live on the farm and make my own food and stuff, which is like wonderful. I support you. But it's like, is that the only solution? That's what it seems like. It's like the only solution is to get yourself out of the matrix, as they say, as opposed to, and she is trying to run for president. So I do applaud that, because at least she's trying to help everyone else. But is there a way forward where it's not just, if you don't want to be poisoned, eat organic? And it's like, that costs a lot of money. And it's like, that title doesn't necessarily mean, like, organic does mean something in this country, but like natural or whatever, those are just marketing terms. So how can we as a country trust these regulations more? So she brings up good points, but I'm not seeing like, this is how I would actually address that, other than just telling people, don't take it, don't eat the bad pesticide food. It's like, but that doesn't work, because we're all working. We need to eat. Like, it's hard to look at all the labels and know what is bad for us and what is good for us. It's like, who's going to cook these meals? It's just, I hear this all the time. I don't necessarily disagree with everything that they say, but it's like, how do I actually implement this in my life given our circumstances? And it's tough. But anyways, I was impressed that she said, like, I just trying to impress him, and I don't really believe that anymore. It's like, okay. I think she does believe it deep down, but, at least publicly. Anyways.
Well, you laid out a detailed answer, and you also mentioned you apologize for the wording there. I interview candidates. I could tell you that's a little different than some of what we hear from certain candidates. I guess to press you in the follow-up and to have this conversation in the depth that it warrants, one of the questions is one that's often posed sometimes about Republicans who are knocking, for example, climate science, which is, these are your views. Where do you come down on who you get your cues from on medicine or science? Because, as you know, in a related issue, there was this question on vaccinations. You just mentioned the well-being of children and pesticides. You had cast skepticism on vaccinations. I wonder if you could better explain to us where you come down on that, given the science and the concern that vaccinations do work and people need them to keep these communities safe.
Well, once again, I think it's an overstatement to say that I cast skepticism on vaccinations. On the issue of vaccinations, I'm pro-vaccination, I'm pro-medicine, I'm pro-science. On all of these issues, what I'm bringing up that I think is very legitimate and should not be derided and should not be marginalized, particularly in a free society, is questions about the role of predatory big pharma.
Well, I'm going to jump in and then let you respond, obviously. But just so my viewers are keeping up with us, I'll read a little bit of what you said since you're talking about the depiction, and then I'll hand it back to you. The quote here was, "It's different. It's no different than the abortion debate. The U.S. government doesn't tell a citizen in my book what they have to do with their body or their child. Vaccine mandates were, in your view at the time, quote, draconian and Orwellian." I hand it back to you.
Well, the issue of draconian and Orwellian, this is the issue. When I was a child, we took far fewer vaccines, and there was much less bungling, and there was much less chronic illness. I don't know why. This is not a topic that I have consciously chosen to. This is not some big topic for me, but I have to tell you,
but do you think vaccinations are contributing to things being worse now? Is that what you're suggesting?
No. What I'm saying is that in 19...
It's like she wants the best of both worlds. Like she wants to be able to say, this is wrong. You should have the choice to do whatever you want with your body, which is one school of thought. And then also say, but no, the mandates are great. So it's like, well, how? Those are two different things. Like you have to sort of choose a side. And she's like, I'm just asking questions. It's like, is that a good position to take? If you do have questions, why don't you just stick by them? Like, I don't think this is good and this is why, or I do think this is good and this is why. It's sort of like playing the field and not really giving a straight answer. And she's kind of going to like, back in my day, we didn't have, it's like, can you talk to can you get a study, please? Because I feel like you're just sort of going off of vibes. Like when I was younger, I didn't have any of these issues. It's like, okay, it's like back in my day, we used to have houses. We used to be able to afford houses. Millennials are so lazy. It's like, yeah, but the world has changed completely. Like I can Google stuff now. You didn't have that back then. Like, I don't know. So yeah, it's just, and I kind of cut it off a little bit in the middle, but she's going to kind of not really commit to one side or the other and just go, well, why can't I ask questions? It's like, you can. He's asking you your position on national TV. That is literally what he's doing, is asking you your opinion on this.
1986, there was this vaccine protection law. There was, and there have been $4 billion in vaccine compensation payments that have been made. And there was much less chronic. There was something like 12% chronic illness among our children previous to that law, and there's 54% now. I don't see why in a free society, what is going on here? When you look at the fact that big pharmaceutical companies lobbied Congress to the tune of $284 million last year alone, as opposed to oil and gas, which has lobbied Congress to the tune of $125 million last year. When you look at all the money that is spent by pharmaceutical companies, even on our news channels, when you look at the fact that there are 2 pharmaceutical lobbyists for every member of Congress, and even when you look at the tens and even hundreds of thousands of dollars that have been paid into the coffers of even presidential candidates, why are we so okay with the complete shutdown of any conversation about this topic?
Well, he's literally asking you on national television, like, let's talk about it. What's your position? And she's like, it's not my issue. I don't really care. Not my big issue. And then she got kind of caught up and then was like, well, actually, why can't we have this conversation? It's like, this is the conversation. What is your stance? Where are you coming from? If you're going to lead this country as you claim you want to, which again, I don't believe she actually wants to. I think she wants to be, highlighted on the news to bolster her own book sales and, seminar sales. But this is like, I don't like when people say like, I'm being oppressed, and they're literally on like, a national news stage. It's like, I'm being silenced. It's like, you have the biggest platform right now in the world. What do you mean? Or this video has 1 million views. I'm being, shadow banned. It's like, oh my God, like, roll my eyes. Come on, really? Like, this is not what you say it is. Like, you can't fight out against, like, I'm being silenced when you're screaming, I'm being silenced in a room, that's 1 million people full. It's like ridiculous. Just because someone has a different opinion does not mean you're being silenced. I think that's the difference. Thank you, Miss Amanda. Miss Amanda says, she just says words and makes him decipher them. Yeah. And she's not as, she's got some integrity, so it seems. And I like that she was able to go back and apologize and, say like, no, I support it. But again, I feel like this is just sort of like the political persona that she's trying to finagle, and that her beliefs are much stronger and much more in the self-help realm. And now we're going to talk about the AIDS thing, but basically, and I talked about this with Louise Hay as well. There's a lot of sort of good and bad when it came to the AIDS epidemic and her role in it. So what I've read, and I could be corrected, but is that she was one of the first spiritual leaders to go and support specifically gay men in that time period who had AIDS, and held these group setting talks and seminars about it. And, we're very supportive when other medical professionals turned their back on that community and were very blamey. And so people like Louise Hay and Marianne Williamson, they sort of were like, no, they deserve to be, acknowledged and loved and all that. And I think that's great. However, there was also the second part to that, which was like AIDS. She said something, allegedly, she said, I didn't see her say it with my own eyes, but I read today that she said something like, God's love is stronger than AIDS, suggesting that, if you gave yourself to God, that you would be cured of AIDS, which I think is offensive. She also allegedly, and Louise Hay would say, this is a self-hatred disease. You have contracted it because of your deep, unconscious self-hatred of yourself. And obviously that is extremely offensive to people who have contracted a disease that is, not contracted because you hate yourself. So it's confusing. And that's sort of how I feel about her in many ways. It's like contradictory and confusing, because there's some things I think she is extremely liberal on, and surprisingly so, and makes some good points about, and is willing to, sort of go farther than other candidates do, which I appreciate, being, out there and trying to do something different and rally the troops. But at the same time, I cannot get behind someone who doesn't believe that, that there's a collective world out there, that not everything is produced by your own mindset. And that's where I just can never, really get on board with someone like this. So thank you, Miss Amanda. And for that, I say,
this is so good.
This is so good. Also, this is what I have to say about Marianne Williamson.
Her charisma is straight up off the charts.
Thank you, Miss Amanda.
Okay. We're almost done with this one.
I would think that the American people.
I would argue, Ms. Williamson, it's not that we're shutting down the topic, but we're engaging it as we do. When you come back to...
No, I hear that.
Thank you. And
I wasn't saying that you were shutting it down.
I appreciate you on that. Is the science and the medicine in a potential administration of yours going to be guided by the Surgeon General, by doctors, et cetera? Or is it...
I'll tell you who it's...
Go ahead.
No, I'm pro... I want more scientific research. I want more scientific research that is not paid for by Big Pharma. In a Williamson administration, there will be more scientific review, more scientific science. What has been happening, and you can see this with this president, is about cutting money to the FDA, just like he wants to cut money to the Centers for Disease Control. He wants to cut money for most things to the National Institute of Health, the things that most people care about. What I want is more scientific review. I want less scientific review that is paid for by Big Pharma.
And my last question is just so we're clear.
I'm on board with that.
Your view, though, of federal or state government vaccination requirements is they are valid, or you may oppose them?
Absolutely. There are with any medical intervention, there are benefits and there are risks. The government always has to come down on the side of the public good. Absolutely. I was vaccinated. My daughter was vaccinated. Of course I am. I just want to know that when it comes to the review of our drugs and when it comes to all issues related to drugs, just as we have to learn from what is happening in the opioid crisis, I want independent regulation that is conducted by the government, that is not paid for by Big Pharma. That's what I want.
Excellent. Well, Marianne Williamson, I appreciate you coming back on the beat. I've talked to you before. Many people thought you had a big night last night.
And that tends to be my view too. Like, okay, if we're going to trust science, on all the issues that science, is a part of on both sides of the spectrum, there's lots of things right now in the news that are science-based and science, and we need to look at the environment and medicine and all these things. Let's go to the experts. And yes, I don't know who's supposed to pay for it. That's the whole problem. It's like, who pays for it? Well, the pharmaceutical companies are willing to pay. And of course, they're going to be biased, in favor of them. So then it gets hairy and confusing. But in a perfect utopia, yes, the more scientific proof and studies that there were, the more on board I am. Okay, so let's see. Okay, she's got a podcast, of course. She's got her own podcast. She's not only on others, she has her own. This one's from 1 year ago. Again, we're talking about depression, spirituality, and depression. She's going to talk about this a little bit. We don't have to watch the whole thing, perhaps, but we'll see how it goes. I have not watched this one. And it just says, one of the dangers of being disconnected from your own suffering is that it fosters desensitization. Okay, so this is one of her theories as well, that pain, both physical and mental, is actually potentially good for you. This is a little thing where I'm like, okay, like, I don't know if I have the quote, but she said something in an interview where she said, it's similar to a pregnant woman wanting to have a natural birth and feel the experience naturally without an epidural. That's how I want to experience depression. And it's sort of like, okay, again, like that's your choice. But as a leader, I find it to be concerning and a turn off. If I was to adopt those beliefs as my own, it's like, you may want to, cold plunge yourself every morning. I'm going to be in a hot tub, enjoying my life and trying to, make it as positive as possible while also being realistic about things, and so it's like punishing yourself for what purpose I find a little bit stupid, but and dangerous for people who are needing help, needing guidance by a professional, and then hearing something like this where it's just like, it'll help you to be depressed. It's like, okay. Anyways, here we go. Oh, thank you, Mickey. Welcome.
Of being disconnected from your own suffering is that it fosters desensitization to the suffering of others. When the United States invaded Iraq, one of the most horrible aspects of that to me was what was happening inside the American people, that we somehow were not registering. That invasion meant we were dropping all of those bombs, all of that fire onto the homes of men, women, and children, defenseless against this, whose country had nothing to do with 9/11, who had done nothing to us, and any intelligent observer could see we really didn't have proof that they had these weapons of mass destruction, not to even mention the fact that we do business with countries that have weapons of mass destruction every single day. What? Well,
and the US has weapons of mass destruction.
Right, thank you. So,
okay, what this title is, what are we going to talk about? Depression.
What disconnection from our own pain led to that? Being disconnected from your pain makes it more likely you will be disconnected from the pain of others. You keep that pain on the other side of the world. You keep that pain on the other side of the city, and that's how the system operates. Whatever suffering.
Well, that great line. That line James Baldwin said, and I think I think about this all the time at the moment. The reason they're so angry is because if they weren't angry, they'd have to feel their pain.
Yeah.
Huh?
It's so much of there's lots and lots of things going on, and I don't want to offer a simplistic explanation for everything, because that would be wrong. But so much of the crisis that we're seeing in our culture at the moment, it's not by any means the only one, but is that if you create a culture that doesn't meet people's deepest needs as human beings, that will come out in all sorts of... Think about that woman I met in Cleveland. I could understand, although I begged her not to vote for President Trump, I could understand
he was speaking,
why in her situation...
He was speaking to her feelings of displacement, the same way that Bernie Sanders did. I mean, they were the two candidates in 2006.
I'm confused about the connection between dropping bombs in Iraq and them not feeling that pain. So we're not watching them. So I don't know, like what, I'm a little confused. I guess I get what she's saying. Like if that was happening here, we would all see it and go, oh my God, this is not okay, which I totally agree with. But where's the depression part? It's like, feel the pain. Okay, so the people that are in Iraq should feel the bombs dropping? Like, I'm sort of confused at the analogy here.
16, who legitimized people's feelings that they've been screwed by the system. And that rage of despair was going to be expressed. So there was the authoritarian populist who was Trump. Then there was the progressive populist who was Bernie. But a woman who was saying is that wrong? Let's continue with what we've been doing. Too many millions of people felt, what are you talking about, lady? I'm drowning here. And they felt that their pain was not validated. And I'm not saying that I don't think Hillary Clinton cared about their pain, but her campaign did not validate people's pain. And I think people want...
Well, that woman in Cleveland.
And by validating the rage, that when Trump validated people's rage, he was validating their pain. And I think that's absolutely a factor in his winning in 2016.
Oh, 100%. I mean, that woman in Cleveland said to me, she was quite well... she'd absorbed a lot of information. She said, it was not long after Hillary Clinton had said... He says, make America great again.
We're already great.
I say America's already great. And she said, ain't great for me. Look at my street. And I think there's a thing about...
You're also from England, I'm assuming. So maybe it's like, why are you getting your opinions out of here? You sound like a British soldier. I always think minus... like Russell Brand obviously I don't think he even lives in the United States anymore. And God, so it's funny that he's like, such a political figure, or not a political figure, but a political commentator on American politics. It's interesting. But John Oliver is the one, he does live in the United States, I believe, who I'm like, I don't care that you're British. You can talk about American politics all the time. I appreciate his research and his show so much, and it's funny. But it is interesting when people who are like Piers Morgan is like America political. It's like, don't you got stuff going on in England like to talk about?
And I do think the Democrats have, partly thanks to your work, and Bernie and so many other people really have absorbed this message. If your response to authoritarian right-wing populism and all the toxicity and vileness and evil it brings is to say, we're the ones saying, what are you complaining about? Like, things are great. And I know Hillary had a more complicated message than that. And I'm grateful to her for endorsing my book. And, I don't want to sound like she's saying that, because she's not. But that is how she was heard by some people. And that was a failing on the part of some people in her campaign. And I think we've got to deal with the deep social crisis in the society and the culture, or we're going to keep seeing lots of toxic manifestations like this. Depression, anxiety, addiction, political extremism. You've got to have a society that ultimately meets people's needs. If the society becomes so misaligned from people's underlying needs...
The problem we have, of course, is that within politics, within the media, within some of the biggest platforms that we have for public conversation, there is the biggest resistance to having the deeper, most authentic conversation. You, my friend, my new friend, Johan Hari, Lost Connections, remind me of the line from Solzhenitsyn, Alexander Solzhenitsyn.
Okay, I sort of was misled with that, with that one. Started off with Iraq, and we ended with women in Cleveland, and it was labeled spirituality and depression. I don't know about that one. I guess what she was saying was, you need to be connected to your pain and others' pain, but I sort of got muddled with too much blah, blah, blah. Okay, so let's look at her and Oprah for a moment. like this was a big reason as to why she is who she is and has such a large platform even today. Thanks to, again, Oprah for coming in clutch and, you know, deciding who should be platformed. And now we're sort of regretting giving Oprah so much power, I think, in a lot of ways, at least when it comes to self-help gurus. Same thing with Ellen. Like Ellen and Oprah both love self-help and personal development because I guess it worked for them, or it's a nice Band-Aid on a huge problem. They can just go, oh yeah, read this book, it'll change your life, and they can feel good about themselves, I suppose. But okay, this is Marianne Williamson on Oprah on forgiveness. Okay, this is from 10 years ago. And it says, author Marianne Williamson has been a spiritual friend and counselor to Oprah for many years, and her advice has sometimes taken Oprah by surprise. Watch as Oprah remembers a time where Marianne counseled her to pray for someone who harmed her and experiences an emotional aha moment on stage. Then watch as Marianne explains the principle of divine compensation and how the universe will always return what someone wrongfully took from you. Unless they don't, unless you're not a millionaire, and unless you die in the process, then it doesn't return it to you. But, you know, and the survivorship bias, as we've talked about many times on this channel, it's like, if you have a good outcome, you'll think that it's a human outcome, like it's a guaranteed outcome. Follow these 10 steps that I did, and you will have the same outcome I did. And it's like, especially when that only happens to people who have like success in their life. And the reason that they have so much pull is because they are one of the few. That's why they have such a big platform, is because they're one of like 1,000 people to make it to that level in this time frame. And it's like they forget that there's billions of people on this planet that don't and will never have that story, even if they follow those steps to a T. Thank you, My chose a lemon character doing shoulder shimmy dance moves. Hey, thank you for that. It's making me have
deep belly laughs.
Deep belly laughs. And also, does Marianne believe in aliens? Find out in this next section. Perhaps. Thank you, Mai. I appreciate it. Okay, here's Oprah. Everyone get ready for Oprah. You get a depression. You get depression. She like famously hates Trump. Her whole debate was basically her looking at the camera, speaking directly to Trump and saying that she was going to love and all that. I wonder if she's using these principles against him because she's, you know, spoken pretty negatively about him. I don't know if that's bringing more good vibes to him, because if the principle is like pray for them, then that'll help you. So I'm interested. I don't know if she's thought about that later on.
I'm a big time hippie and I'm very woo woo.
I can get behind the principle. It's like it's a Catholic thing, so I have some experience with that growing up. It's like, you know, big on forgiveness. You got to forgive. Like I remember, speaking of 9/11, I remember I was in Catholic school at the time, and 9/11 happened. I was in 5th grade, and the day after it happened, we all had to meet in the auditorium to pray for the hijackers, which was sort of like confusing as a 10-year-old. And I'm not saying that's right or wrong necessarily, especially to kids, but that's not necessarily like a woo-woo principle. It is sort of tied up in probably a lot of religions. But I can get behind the theory and the concept of like trying to forgive people who have wronged you. The part that I get thrown off is the universe works like this, and let me explain how like quantumly the universe works. That's where I'm like, okay, I'm out. If you can explain how the universe works, and it's always somehow to get those people to be, you know, the best versions of themselves, which roll my eyes, and somehow punish other people for doing nothing at all, that's where I go, okay, whatever. And that's where I'm like turned off, because if you were just saying like, I think it's a good idea to forgive people, and I think it actually helps you release, you know, your stress. Holding on to anger is not going to really help you necessarily in the long run, so maybe you should consider forgiving them down the road. Fine, but then it's the second part where it's like, this is proven by law of the universe. It's like, okay, I'm out. as soon as computers were invented, the woo-woo people just went off onto that as an analogy. I heard that so many times from my life coach. Like, I'm gonna get a download. You just need a download. You just need to change your programming. You just need to click the cursor of your. I'm like, oh. At the time, I was like, yeah, I can understand this concept. Great. My brain is just a computer, and source code is like coming into my brain. Wonderful, lovely. I'm just gonna upgrade. And it's like, I'm an idiot. It's like, we are not computers. We're complicated organisms. And, you know, we're dealing with a lot of things going on, chemistry and environment. And like, I don't believe in a God hard drive delivering information to me. Like, and how can it be, is it just like, okay, so if I have a mental illness and I'm talking to people that aren't there, is that just a defect or what? Like, I don't understand when things go awry. It only works if you look at someone like her who's been really successful their whole life, essentially, or Oprah who's been really successful their whole life. And it's like, well, I guess it's true. It worked for us. So I guess I must have been doing this thing the right way. God has blessed me. It's like, I think there's something called luck. You need to download LimeWire first and then steal it from the source energy. So that's how I really think she thinks. Like, that's what I think, the level where she's like, this is how the universe works. This book that I, read in the 70s, it proves everything. This is all the tenets of it. This is how things go and operate. That's how I think she really believes things happen. Now, she tones it down, I think, for the mainstream. But someone like Oprah who's into it, she's like, okay, let's go. Let me explain how computers work in the universe. Okay, let's take a look. We already looked at her. Let's look at her Instagram just real quick. Maybe we'll read some stuff about her life. And now she's sort of, pushed. Now she's doing this campaign again against Joe Biden potentially, but, most likely will just kind of be in the news cycle here and there, and then, will fade away again. But she sort of has stopped her self-help posting and posted much more about politics.
What about Marianne Williamson?
Here's two random people talking about her. Leah Mobb, which I don't know who that is. This is a podcaster who wrote Chaos Theory. Okay.
I love Marianne Williamson.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I think she's amazing. And I think it is horrible how the mainstream media is maligning her and disparaging her.
The White House press secretary, they were like, she was like, what did she say? She said something like, maybe our aura,
consult my crystal ball, or
right? And like was like, and I'm like, no, Marianne Williamson is dope.
But they refuse to bring up any of her policy agenda because her policies are all like incredibly popular. So instead of like talking about her policies, they're just trying to write her off as like some weird mystic.
Yeah, like she's just a witch.
Sunny Hostin on The View said that, like, made some incredibly disparaging comments about her. And to be on a show like The View and you're going to malign her and disparage her that way, like, makes me sick to my stomach. What they're doing to Marianne. Marianne, if you're watching this, I love you.
I love you too, Marianne.
I love you, Marianne.
Okay, so we can talk about that, about the White House press secretary, what she said. And I guess she apologized for it later. But it's sort of true. When you believe in self-help and you are making your whole career about it, and you're writing a book about losing weight spiritually, and you're talking to Oprah about the universe and all, like, that is sort of the cross that you bear, no pun intended. And I don't know who these women are. So, of course they're, allowed to have their opinion on politics, but it is a little, that's just how it sort of is. And not that that's fair or right, and I don't know how popular her principles are, her policies. Somewhat, perhaps, but popular, half the country would say absolutely not to everything that she has to say. So that's sort of not entirely true. But where is this one? Okay. So here's the reaction. See, I told you I had a Fox News bulletin. So this is her responding to being made fun of. And this is something that she's talked about a lot, is that, as a woman, she's criticized differently than men. I don't disagree that that's probably true. But I think it's fair game. I mean, I don't know. I think this the one reporter or anchor asking the question about, the health and science, it is relevant to your world beliefs because you are now going to be leading a country potentially. We need to kind of know where you stand as administration. So.
It's a startling number. You think about it. Among Democrats, only 37% think Joe Biden should run again for election. They're looking, that is, almost 2 out of 3 for somebody else, not him. Marianne Williamson wants to be that.
He's no Tucker Carlson.
That's somebody else. She's back in the race to challenge Joe Biden. Back when she ran in the last contest, it was a crowded field. Only the two of them right now as things stand.
Oh.
We assume the president's going to run for re-election.
Thanks,
Marianne
Kristen.
Williamson, kind enough to join us now. Ms. Williamson, good to have you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Why are you doing this?
I'm doing this because I think there are some things we need to talk about in this country and we need to change. People need health care. People need a way to get educated, to send their kids to college. People need a living wage. We need to save the environment for our grandchildren. Things that, represent...
All of that stuff I am on board with in theory. Like, yes, environment, yes. College education. She's in favor of eliminating school debt, which obviously would be wonderful for me because I have school debt left. But then she's like, I believe in that. And it's like, okay, well, Joe Biden literally put it through and now it's being challenged in the court. So what are you going to do differently to make that not happen? She doesn't have an answer. So that's the part where I'm like, oh, I want to like you. I want to like your policies and your ideas, but like, you're not really thinking through them or giving any realistic way forward. And I think it's because she's like, the universe will provide the path. It's like, okay.
Among other things, a healthy middle class, which we had in this country in the 1970s. These things need to be put on the table, and they need to represent the kind of economic U-turn that this country needs. And
there's so much text on the screen right now. Oh my God.
I would effectuate as president.
I know Bernie Sanders is impressed with you. He says you should give it a good shot. We've heard very little from anyone else. In fact, nothing. It's almost like crickets from everyone else in your party. Even the progressive wing that supposedly you would appeal to, certainly more than the president. What do you say?
Well, there's this decision made. It's we will not primary Biden. And so everybody who's thinking only about their own career, they're just standing in line and waiting because that's the decision made from on high. I believe in democracy. I believe in elections. I believe in anyone who feels moved to run for president, putting their ideas out there, submitting their resume, as it were, and their agenda to the American people, and then let the primary voters decide. That's what democracy should mean. Yeah.
Do you want to debate the president?
Yes.
Absolutely, I want to debate the president, and I think that he should debate me, given the fact that I am another candidate.
All right.
I'm the declared one, actually.
All right, you're the only one for the time being here. Do you think others will enter? Because no one seems to be, even with that disaffection for the president among the base, to jump in.
It's a very serious decision whether or not to run for president, and I respect that. And I'm sure a lot of people are thinking very deeply about their own, they're thinking about their careers because they're part of the political machinery. I'm not. So I don't have to worry about any of those things like what will this mean.
She's not, but she tried, but she's not. She's an outsider in the sense of she's not held office, but she's tried, like I said, twice before to enter the political sphere. So she definitely has political ambitions. It's not that she's like, she did say that she was, in 2017, she heard a voice that she believes is her now passed on father who told her to run. So maybe, and that was in 2017. She had already run in 2014 for Congress. So I guess she is, in her mind, being guided by some force above her to do this. So maybe she is choosing this, because she's been told by source to do it.
For my future political career. I think there might be some other people from outside that political machine who jump in. That's, to me, the sort of glory of democracy, that anybody should be out there who feels moved to be out there and give their case, put their piece to the American people.
The last time you were running, you were talking about love and, the idea of decency and look after your fellow man. I'm kind of conflating it all. I apologize for that. But now there are reports in Politico that...
Her Avatar podcast? Marianne Williamson has an Avatar podcast? Please explain further.
You don't practice necessarily what you preach, that there are allegations you've been very mean, condescending, actually cruel.
Oh, yeah. Okay. This is a whole other thing that we need to talk about, that she was in the 90s. Now, obviously, it's been a while, so she could change. She could have been better. But she was accused by like everyone she worked with at her nonprofit that she ran in California, that she is like a bitch. Now, is that the end of the world? No, but her style was, people were suing her for I don't know if it was abuse or like emotional, like torture, basically, which again, I think that's relevant because she's running on a candidacy of love and light. She's saying that love and forgiveness and all of this is like my principles as a human being. But then behind the scenes, she's actually, a hard person to get along with. She's very micromanaging, according to this, accusation from some employers. And then her response is basically like, well, it's only because I'm a woman. If I was a man, it'd be good. It's like, maybe that's true. There's some truth to that, but I think it's still relevant and fair to ask those questions. Like, your entire work staff is saying that they've been like neglected and hurt by your attitude. What do you have to say to that? And it's like, how dare you? I'm a woman. Like, okay, and like you can still be criticized. I think it's like similar again to Rachel Hollis, where, she talks about like good vibes only and choose joy. But then people at her, workplace were saying that they were overworked and underpaid and laid off. And, she's forcing them to wear outfits that they might not necessarily want to wear. And it's a competitive, cutthroat place. It's like, that doesn't sound like your principles that your whole company's based on, but okay.
Members that you have a long history of yelling and screaming at them. They're afraid of you. What do you say?
This is what they do. This is what they do. These are the hits that they make. Hit pieces come. Mockery from the press secretary to the president comes. Women on The View. These are the dirty tricks that mean you're rattling someone. Somebody's not happy that you're there. Somebody feels threatened by the conversation that you're bringing up. So this is what happens in politics, and I'm not surprised that it's
I certainly
happening to me.
understand that, but they do quote a few people. You're quite right. Quite a few of these were not identified. But this,
have you noticed that?
But this poor.
Yeah, because, well, she's like, well, not a lot of people went off the record to give their account to the reporter, but in the report it said that she had them sign NDAs, and it said that she had taxi drivers that she would drive with sign NDAs to force them not to speak out about her. Now, whether that's true or not, I don't know, but that's the reason why they said they did not want to come forward. Alaska Blood Tundra, thank you so much. Alaska Blood Tundra's in the house. Hold on, let me play my. This is what I have to say. This is my platform for president.
Soda!
Obama.
Soda!
Oh, I love it. Thank you, Alaska Blood Tundra. Everyone, welcome, welcome, welcome. You can now use big hat. She doesn't have big hat energy. I don't know. Marianne Williamson, she's like more of like witch hat, witch wand, not, or like a scarf, like a mystical scarf. She's not a big hat influencer, unfortunately. Okay, let's take he's going to quote it, and then we can read the article that has a lot of the accusations. That's a good segue. But okay, let's do the little preview here.
The former congressman who had said that, this is consistent with my observation, quoting him, and consistent with behavior I have seen. What do you say?
I could talk about Paul Hode's behavior, but I'm not going to go there. If anybody has ever felt that I was not respectful to them who worked for me, then I am sorry. But I also know that this is a hit piece. I think any time that somebody criticizes you, you always have to ask yourself, is any of it true? Is 10% of it true? If 10% of it is true, then I want to correct that within myself and within my behavior. But that's not what's going on here. Do I have some things to learn from any experience, including that one? Absolutely. But I also think that people can see through the obvious game that's being played here by establishment forces who don't want me in the game.
Some people put it out there, including the White House press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre, who made a number of snide references about you. I just want you to respond to this.
Is the president annoyed, frustrated with Marianne Williamson for jumping in the race ahead of him? Did he want a clear field to run against the Republican nominee in 2024?
Just not tracking that. I mean, if I had a what is it called, a little a little globe here, crystal ball that I can tell you, but I imagine 8-ball, whatever. If I can feel her aura, I just don't have anything to share on that.
What did you think of that?
I don't know. It's pretty neutral, I think. Yeah, obviously it's a snide remark. It sort of does. I mean, her whole campaign supporters back in 2020 were called like the Orb gang. So like Orb, like ORB gang. So it's sort of relevant and kind of funny. Like I get it that it's offensive, but I don't know. It's not, she doesn't say that woman is a horrible psychopath with no future here. Like, I don't know. It seems pretty tame to me.
What I thought of that is, first of all, she's not tracking that. She's not tracking that. Obviously she is. Those were not spontaneous remarks. I've written 15 books. I've given thousands of lectures. No one will see anywhere that I have said or written anything about crystal balls or about auras. I write books about religious, spiritual themes at the heart of all the great religious teachings of the world. And I think given the deep religiosity and spirituality of the majority of Americans, you might want to be careful mocking that.
I agree with you. I mean, you're very profound on A Politics of Love comes to mind, where you raise issues that maybe a lot of candidates, a lot of people in general, don't share during a campaign. But the idea when you ran last time is that you were caught off guard, that you were flippant, that you're making up for it now by really getting down and studying a lot of these issues. Do you regret the way things started in that last campaign?
Well, I think the issue that you bring up, the point is what you just said, when they started. I think when people actually came to hear me speak last time, I was speaking about serious issues then, but because, the debates were kind of early, I was nervous. I made a couple of, I gave ammunition to those who wanted to oppose me by sounding kind of silly with a couple of things I said. Although I also said some very serious things in those debates about all kinds of issues as well. But when people actually came to hear me, the issue was take something silly that she said, use it to create fairy dust so people won't even come hear her. But if you look at my website from last time and you look at my actual talks last time, I was talking about serious issues then. Now I think people are hearing me. That's the main difference, because to be honest with you, Neil, I'm not talking any more seriously now than I was talking then. I was just seen.
I would say, hey, girlfriend, I'll take you on. I mean, that is kind of silly. Okay, let's take a break. Let's go into the she's a jerk one. Let's see, where is that? I have so much. Yeah, she's like, I need to not be on Twitter. That was a good decision on her part. Okay. Here's some of the memes that were made about her. New York Times has some good graphics sometimes. It says, ironic occultists for Marianne Williamson. In a meme group, sardonic and sincere Williamson supporters unite against the haters. Okay, the Avatar thing. What is going on with the Avatar thing? I did not come across Avatar. I'll have to Google it. In the meantime, should we read that one? Oh, I was looking for the one where she's a jerk. Let's see. Let me Google. Let me Google. Williamson Avatar? Oh my God. I see a picture. Okay, wait. Okay, I did not know this. Why am I getting Grant Cardone? Because he is the true guru. He is the true love of my life, and everything he says is real. Just kidding. I got ads because I look up these scammers all day long, and he has a $35,000 2-day retreat for couples coming up, so that's why I'm assuming. Okay, it says, unearthed tweets video reveal Marianne Williamson's deep spiritual love of Avatar. Cast your minds to the distant past of 2010. Barack Obama was president. Bill Cosby was still America's dad, though he really, really shouldn't have been. The fidget spinner was a torque bar. I don't know what that is. Released in December 2009, the movie about Na'vi of Pandora was a smashing success, ultimately grossing nearly $3 billion and inspiring another wave of hero worship for director James Cameron. Following spiritual author Marianne Williamson's New Zealand performance at the second Democratic presidential debates, an enterprising soul dug up Williamson's old tweets about the flick in 2010. She really, really, really liked the movie. Like, really. Okay, I'm sure this is deleted by now. Let's see. Maybe not. Yeah. She deleted everything that has been referenced in any article, it seems. I'll look it up in the Go Wayback Machine. Williamson's Avatar buzz was so intense that 2 months later, she was still high in the branches of the Tree of Souls. Reactions to the resurfaced tweets ran the gamut. From Yes Queen, or it just says Yes Queen, Marianne, this is a sizzling take. Okay, now I'm worried about her. And did people really think this back then? Regarding the last yes, they did, we know. Among the many to point out that Avatar was essentially a remake of Fern Gully was someone known as Marshmallow Peeps, who tweeted, OMFG, it was goddamned Fern Gully and it wasn't that good. Based on the screen name, Peeps knows a thing or two about things that are awful and gross. Okay. It turns out Williamson's Avatar fangirling didn't stop with her tweets, however. The Daily Dot unearthed footage from 2010 of her waxing poetic about the movie during an interview series with Elliot Mintz. Okay, here we go. I love that this is a thing. Maybe she can be president of the Na'vi.
That's Greenblatt's with fabulous snacks for Marianne. Just give a moment for them to breathe.
This is what video looked like in 2010.
Have you seen Avatar? It's so amazing, Elliot.
Would I like it?
I think you would like it. It's spiritually unbelievable. I think it's fabulous. I think James Cameron should win the Nobel Peace Prize. I do. I think that if humanity makes it, if anything has the capacity to really help create a tipping point, it's that movie. It's the same archetype as The Mission or Dances with Wolves, but it takes it into a future place. And in the past, these things have never ended well. And it puts it in a future context of infinite possibility. And I think it's a portal. I say that unabashedly. I think it's a portal, the way the Harry Potter books are a portal.
Huh?
The way the fairy tales are a portal. The way any great work of art is a portal. Sometimes, look at something like Superman. You know, it's a Christ story for children, really. So, I think the idea that that's not a serious movie is preposterous. I think it's deeply serious. And it moves into a part of the brain because of the enchantment, because of the fairy tale, mythological.
He looks so unimpressed. Welcome, Delia?
It's
bye?
very enchanted. And so it just goes right through. And I think it's totally inspired. I heard James Cameron say in an interview there's a fine line between an archetype and a cliche. And he's absolutely right. I do not find the movie cliched at all. I find it deep. Great. Big fan.
My best friend from high school, that was his favorite movie. I don't think it is anymore, but back in 2009 when we were graduating high school, that was his favorite movie. And I'm like, it was good, but was it like the best movie of all time? He's like, yes, it was so good. But he didn't like it for the same reason. He's like, I just think it's really cool, the graphics. I'm like, oh, okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. But I don't even think. No, I don't have a soundbite for that. Okay, so she really likes Avatar. Okay, so they're just describing the video. Okay, she deleted her tweets. So, all right, should I research more Marianne Avatar, or is that it? Is that the gist? It says Marianne Williamson, Avatar's #1 fan, interviews she got to interview James Cameron. Okay. That's so an hour and 24 minutes. Okay, she's got a quick one. Let's see. There's a tweet about it. Hold on. Sorry. Let me show you. It says, deeply sorry we made a supercut.
You might not, I want to tell you.
It says, deeply sorry that we made a supercut of Marianne Williamson's interview with James Cameron about Avatar. Okay. It's only 38 seconds. Perfect. This is what I need. I don't need an hour and a half. I just need like a short view. Here we go.
You might not, I want to tell you this. I was in Israel and I was talking to some Israeli and Palestinian peacemakers. And I said, I'm telling you the truth. I said, well, you know, the Great Mother doesn't choose sides. According to Avatar, the Great Mother doesn't choose sides. She's there to protect balance.
Yes.
She doesn't pick a winner. She protects balance. And
Yes.
do you know what the Palestinian and the Israelis in the room, do you know their reaction?
What did they say?
They exploded.
They thought about it.
They
That's
nodded.
good.
And I think it was because some of them had seen Avatar.
Yeah.
You might not, I want to tell you this.
Okay. That's weird. So she's like, you know, the two-state solution is one path. Having everyone in those countries watch Avatar, mandatory, morning, noon, and night. That'll solve the problem. That's one solution. Okay. Where's the full one? I need more. He didn't seem so excited. Also, he did not. I hate when people don't tilt down. Tilt the camera down, James. Tilt it down. This is from, what year is this from? 2021. Okay. I don't know. Is it worth it? Cameron is one of the geniuses of our time, and it was an honor to get to know him. Okay. Let's just see how it goes for a second.
You're about to hear a clip of a conversation I had with James Cameron, the extraordinary screenwriter and director of films like Titanic, The Terminator, and my favorite, Avatar. I was pretty universally teased about the fact that I had put out tweets saying that if Western civilization survives, it will be because enough people see Avatar. Well,
okay, if Western civilization survives, it's because enough people have seen Avatar. That is a take. You know, I do love passionate people. I will say it does make me like them a lot more. So someone who is unabashedly passionate about anything, I tend to favor them over people who are like, I don't know. So, but that's a stretch. I gotta just say. Oh boy.
You know, there's some serious truth to that, because right now, with its re-release in China, that film is now the highest grossing film in the world. And I think there's a reason for it. I think people are enchanted by the force of Pandora and the wisdom of the Na'vi and the drama of the Avatar. There's some very, very serious themes that are covered in that movie. And the fact that those themes are presented in kind of comic book form, I think is the genius of Jim Cameron. So the way the American capitalists and joined with the American military are out to get the unobtainium, and they are willing to destroy the indigenous people and the indigenous ecosystem in order to do that. Hello. This is not a cartoon story. This is a very real story, and we're living it right now. And I think Avatar has a lot of wisdom to give us. So, as you can imagine, I was so excited that I was able to have as my guest on the podcast Jim Cameron. You're about to hear a little clip. Please go over to the Marianne Williamson podcast YouTube channel, subscribe, and then go to Spotify and Apple and rate and review and do all those things that you're supposed to do with podcasts these days. And more than anything else, enjoy the conversation. This man is such a genius, not only as a filmmaker, he's even a deep sea explorer. Here he is, Jim Cameron.
We're getting like the little ASMR that I love too. It's like, Jim Cameron. We're on a nickname basis.
Jim Cameron, I can't thank you enough for being on the podcast with me. It's just an honor to have a chance to talk to you.
Well, it's absolutely a pleasure to be invited on your show or podcast or whatever we call it. I guess it's a show these days, right?
Whatever it is, as you know, it's content that matters, not form. If
Right.
anybody has made that clear, it's you.
No.
So, Albert Camus said that fiction is where it's the lie where we get to tell the truth. And the thing that so fascinates me about Avatar is that with this fantastical world that you've created, you tell such very profound truths. And I'm very excited to have an opportunity to talk to you about that. If it's okay, I want to ask you something even before we get into the movie itself. One of the things that fascinates me about you is that you're from Canada.
Okay. Is that you have white hair? Has anyone ever brought that up to you? It's very amazing, eh?
It fascinates me that your childhood was spent there in the forests there. And so I'm interested. You've talked before about how transformative your childhood experiences were, particularly in terms of your connection with the forest and what you bring to us, of course, on Pandora and the forest there. Do you think, I mean, obviously we have great forests in the United States as well. Do you feel that if you had been brought up here in the United States, it would have been the same thing for you?
This is the weirdest question. I would never have thought. Like, the one thing that intrigues me about you and about this movie, who I think you should win the Nobel Peace Prize for making. Do you think Canada has anything to do with it?
And do you feel, I know you're a Canadian citizen now, it interests me because you seem to have just enough distance from the imperialism, from the colonialism, from the economic insanity. There seems to be that just enough distance to be able to speak more truthfully into it. Is there something there about your being Canadian?
Very probably. I wouldn't want to overplay it because, I mean, Canada's...
We have a lot of really great friends from Canada.
I was born in Canada also, by the way. Jimmy, me and Jimmy are besties. Hey, Jim, take a look at what I just made there. I was just making an edit on that. Just take a little gander when you got a second, okay? Just fix it up for me. I'm actually the one who created Avatar secretly. I am from Canada. I've talked about that before, obviously, way back. I haven't talked about my Canadian roots in a while. My roots. But I moved back and forth from Florida and Canada when I was a kid, and two of my best years of my life were in Canada. 9 years old and 10 years old. That's when I was talking about earlier at the Catholic school for one of the years. Right over the border of Buffalo, New York. Shout out. There was one person in the chat, I don't know if they're still here, that was like from the same area that I was from, or like close by, and like took a picture of like my hometown essentially, because like they were in the neighborhood. I was like, wow, small world. Anyways, basically, Jimmy and I are the same. So I can speak for him as well, as a fellow Canadian.
Subject to all of those factors as well. And they've had various, governments there that have been, more involved in sort of the rape of the land, if you will, and our current, government there is less so, which is good. And it goes back and forth. The pendulum swings in the States. It swings here in New Zealand, where I am now. It swings in Canada. I think, the child is the father of the man, and so I'm very much the product of my early experiences, which were a combination of being Canadian, being rural, and having an inquisitive mind and wanting to spend time in nature, which was also possibly a function of its time. Had I been the same person now at that age in that same environment, might I have spent my childhood in video games and not gone out into the woods? So, our time, our specific time on the planet, I think makes a difference. I think Canadians tend to be a little more, there's the joke about Canadians being polite, but I think it comes from them being a generation closer to a rural environment, being a little bit more on a frontier, being a little bit hard.
I think it's because we had free healthcare, perhaps, maybe. More outdoor time. I don't know. I was only a kid. I never lived there as an adult, so I don't know. And I see a lot of MLM stuff coming out of Canada as of late, and obviously some more conspiratorial thinking. And I don't know where that comes from. Canada always seems to be a little bit behind America in like trends and things, but I don't know if that's just like my perspective that's not true or not. But I don't know how this relates to Avatar at all.
Harsher environment. People have to pull together a little bit more. There's maybe a little more sense of community there. So yeah, Canadians are polite. You know, I'm always saying I'm sorry to people, you know.
Well, it didn't seem to me so much just even polite as just a perspective on what's happening in the United States.
Yeah.
But like you said, you see it everywhere. But the United States so embodies it in such a way, and you were so out there with the truth telling about it. You were just talking about children being in the forest, children being with nature, and obviously your connection to nature goes not only the land, but also the ocean, also outer space. And yet at the same time, and this is what makes you so phenomenally you, is you have this master of both worlds thing going on, where you have this, in fact, it's three worlds, because not only do you have this profound connection to nature that you can take us right into, you're a portal right into it, then this profound capacity technologically, and the genius of the exploration. You know, it's so interesting because when you watch the videos of the teams you worked with for the submersive into the bottom of the ocean, it's very similar to the team of geniuses that you're working with to make Avatar, right?
Well, it turns out, you need the same kind of inquisitive people that think outside the box to do exploration and to do innovation. They're very similar sort of mental processes for people. First of all, you can't do it yourself, so you know you're going to be part of a team. How do you lead a team? How do you inspire a team? What is the storytelling that you create around what you're doing and what you're attempting to do together? What are the challenges? How do you overcome those challenges? How do you deal with the defeats that inevitably come along, or I should say, the setbacks? And it's very similar when you're at the cutting.
Yeah, she's from Texas, so I don't know. Her accent seems like she's developed it over time. And I think because she speaks in like a spiritual way, they tend to have like a different sort of way to speak deeply. So maybe that's coming out a little bit too.
Edge of image.
She lived in California a long time as well.
Creation, like we were for Avatar, for example, or creating a brand new robotic or submersible vehicle to go into the deep ocean.
Okay. Jimmy, got to wrap you up here. Very interesting talking about Canada and submersive vehicles and such, but we need to get back to Marianne. We're going to get back to the woman of the hour. No more Canadians. They take up too much space in our American political discussions. But thank you for your service. We appreciate you. Okay, I found the article. That was a nice break. I do find that to be hilarious. Avatar's greatest fan, Marianne Williamson. I can't believe I didn't come across that. What the hell? My research sucks. Okay, this one's from 1992. Okay, so when I was a wee baby, this article was being written. Okay, here we go. This is about her. We're going backwards for a second. We're going to her management style and what she was accused of, and said that it's just a hit piece from the 90s. The cavernous hangar at the Santa Monica airport has been transformed on this fall evening into a glittering AIDS benefit charity auction called Divine Design. Madonna's corset from her Blonde Ambition tour and the leather jacket worn by Arnold Schwarzenegger in Terminator 2 are among the donated items on the block. Elizabeth Taylor, Angelica Houston, and Daryl Hannah are part of the star-studded turnout. So Marianne Williamson also was the person who ordained? No, what do you call it when it's like you're at a wedding and you're I pronounce you man and wife, whatever that word is. She did that for one of Elizabeth Taylor's marriages. But even in the midst of all this Hollywood glamour, the real star of the event is the diminutive diminutive woman with flawless skin and angular features. The crowd applauds warmly as Marianne Williamson steps to the podium. Then it hushes for her exhilarating speech about the powers of love and forgiveness, and at the conclusion erupts in thunderous ovation. But as Williamson makes her way out of the spotlight and off the stage, she seems not to hear the accolade, and at least several in the gathering are witness to a quite different side of the inspirational speaker. Quote, excuse me, she barks, pushing toward the back of the audience. What was that? She hisses, launching into a tirade directed at her audio-visual crew. I told you! The evening slide presentation, a depiction of seriously ill AIDS patients, was, it seems, not uplifting enough. This is like the Ellen issue. I guess I can show you this screen. Where it's like, why do they act differently? It's a phenomena, you know? Like they have a personality, a persona, a doctrine of living, which is like, be kind, be positive, and then, but in their own execution of it, they are, and I'm thinking like Rachel Hollis, Ellen, people who, you know, claim to be this like positive force and then act like rude. It's very interesting. There's a guy locally, I don't want to get too much into it because I don't want to be like exposed. There's a guy locally that's known as like a pretty religious guy, Christian guy, who owns a couple restaurants. And it started out as like a feeding the homeless operation, which led into a pretty successful restaurant business. And I met him when I worked in news, and he was such an asshole to me for no reason. I was like helping him, you know, get through the studio. He's doing a segment, and every time he would come in he was so rude, didn't look me in the eye, wouldn't talk to me, was such a jerk, would like, where's my stuff, da 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 da, like very like, and no one was like that. It was like he was the only one, like a diva, and then but was nice to like the anchors and like the higher people, and I'll never forget it. And his whole platform was like, I'm such a caring, nice guy, I started this nonprofit. I'm like, but you're a jerk. Like, I don't know, why can't you just be nice? I don't get it. Anyways, it's a weird phenomenon I'm interested in. At the age of 39, Marianne Williamson has become Hollywood's most compelling and perplexing spiritual guide since Werner Erhard swept through Tinseltown with his EST movement in the 70s. Lest there be any doubt, consider her credentials. Last October, Williamson officiated at the California wedding of Larry Fortnesky and Elizabeth Taylor, who says that Williamson's sense of spirituality triggered off my own. Actress Raquel Welch and Rosanna Arquette, as well as Cher, are among the thousands who have flocked to her quasi-religious New Age lectures on both coasts. Leslie Ann Warren calls Williamson a pal. Comedian Louis Anderson and Kim Basinger serve on the honorary board of one of her charitable organizations, and dozens of other celebrities have lent their support, helping Williamson raise more than $1.5 million to date for her work against AIDS. Barbra Streisand is said to have taken an interest in her teachings. Other publicity-shy stars reportedly listen at home to her 50 inspirational audio tapes on subjects ranging from forgiving your parents to death does not exist. Quite the gamut there, okay. This month, her just-published inspirational guide, A Return to Love, launched with a Hollywood book party given by Norman Lear, hit the top of the New York Times self-help bestseller list. And with Williamson as a guest on her February 4th talk show, Oprah Winfrey, who bought 1,000 copies to distribute to her studio audience, gave the volume an unabashed plug. Quote, I have never been as moved by a book, she told viewers, as I have by Marianne Williamson's book. Along with her message, the foundation of Williamson's mass appeal is a network of charitable organizations deeply involved in the fight against AIDS. Her project, Angel Food, founded in 1989, now provides 330 hot meals daily for homebound AIDS patients in Los Angeles. And for the record, I think that's amazing and wonderful. Her two nonprofit Manhattan and LA Centers for Living, founded with the help of $100,000 in donations from entertainment mogul David Geffen, provide a range of services from house cleaning to meditation and massage. In private life, Williamson, a self-described unwed Jewish mother, shares a smallish 2-bedroom Hollywood apartment with her 22-month-old daughter, India Emmeline, whose father she refuses to identify or discuss. Interesting. Could it be that Jimmy Cameron is actually the father? Could it be, wait, who could the father be? Could it be from another world? If that was true. Sorry. Okay. Also, I don't know if they're going to say it in this article, but she was roommates when she moved to California with Laura Dern randomly when Laura Dern was 17 years old. So a little bit of Hollywood lore there. Okay. So interesting. Who's the father? Let's get her on Maury. Let's see who the dad is. And drives a battered 7-year-old, Pergo? I don't know what car that is. She takes no salary from her organizations, but lives on book royalties and her lectures, $7 a head, $10 in New York, suggested contributions. That's one thing too, that she says that she, says pay $7, $10 to come to my lectures, but if you're too poor, you can still come, which I think is like awesome and a great method. Because I gotta give credit, like a lot of people will charge these $20,000, if you believe in yourself, if you care about your life, then you'll pay me $100,000, Tony Robbins style, which I think is ridiculous. So the fact that she's got, this is the 90s, but, pay what you can. I want to help you with your, with your life anyways. Even if you can't pay, I think that's good. Her celebrity connections, she modestly implies, are little more than happenstance. Meeting someone in Hollywood who is in the entertainment business, she says, is like meeting someone in Houston who is in the oil business. How do you avoid it? Yet beneath the glowing surface of Williamson's spiritual domain, there are growing undercurrents of dissension and mistrust. A number of sources, many of whom are former employees and associates, charge that Williamson's offstage displays of temper and unchecked ego, as well as a cruelly abrasive management style, are alienating her allies, giving credibility to her detractors, and most damaging of all, beginning to undermine the basis of financial support for her legitimate and vital charity work. So she's getting in her own way, as they say. Marianne is a tyrant. She's cruel, unnecessarily, and very controlling, says one former associate. It doesn't mean that her works aren't great. They are, but her own ego is going to destroy her. Okay, and again, the Course in Miracles, or A Course in Miracles, is all about not listening to your ego, but then ironically, one of the people who is its biggest champion seems to have a huge ego. Why does that happen so much? I'm so interested and confused. Among the developments that have most rankled insiders were the disappointing profits of the Divine Design auction. Expected to generate something like $2 million, it netted only $725,000. The reason, say her critics, was Williamson's micromanagement of the event. Potential profits were eaten away, they say, by Williamson's insistence on such questionable amenities as air conditioning for the hangar. Okay. Other criticism centers on her high-handed management. Last year, in a dispute over the Manhattan Center for Living's religious orientation, Williamson dismissed most of its board members, including film director Mike Nichols, who went on to create a rival AIDS support organization. Can you imagine having a rival nonprofit that you're trying to compete with? We are the best, not you. In LA, Williamson's 20-member Center of Living staff rebelled last month after the firing of the center's fourth director in 5 years. Popular local politician Steve Schulte, who had clashed frequently with Williamson over business strategy. Some employees are attempting to unionize in an effort, they say, to protect themselves from Williamson's bad-tempered caprices. I'm not good at words. Her treatment of other loyal employees has also caused grumbling in the ranks. One staffer, the Manhattan Center's board director, Regina Hoover, was put on probation with Williamson's consent last year, 1 week before Hoover's scheduled double mastectomy. Oh boy. A short time after her surgery, Hoover was fired, then forced to haggle for months over the terms of her medical insurance. Damn. Marianne's ego is all over the place, says a worker at the LA Center for Living who wishes to remain anonymous. When she's mad, it's like watching a 3-year-old throw a tantrum. I've seen her reduce a volunteer worker to tears and swearing that he'd never come back. Since a story critical of Williamson's abrasiveness appeared in the February 16th Los Angeles Times, at least one individual donor and one corporate donor say they have suspended financial contributions, and several demoralized Project Angel Food volunteers had to be dissuaded from resigning. Not long before that story's publication, Williamson's warned her staff not to speak to reporters. Her words, according to witnesses, "You're fucking with my livelihood. I'm famous. I don't need this, damn it." Lordy.
Am I the only hippie?
No, you're not the only hippie anymore, Rachel.
I don't know if anybody has worked as hard on this topic as I have.
Marianne Williamson, she's worked harder. She's famous. In public, a number of colleagues believe Williamson's charismatic lecturing is increasingly undercut by her conduct. At one high-profile Hollywood party last February, Williamson pleaded with her friend and backer, producer-manager Sandy Gallen, to introduce her to Dolly Parton and Shirley MacLaine. Teasing her, Gallen recited in a sing-song voice, "Dolly, this is Marianne. Shirley, this is Marianne." Within earshot of TV and big movie shots, Williamson snapped, "Fuck off, Sandy," before storming away. Okay. From an early age, Williamson was used to going and getting her own way. Her brand of eclectic spiritualism has shaped... Okay, sorry. Let me start over. From an early age, Williamson was used to going and getting her own way. Her brand of eclectic spiritualism was shaped in Houston, where she grew up the youngest of 3 children of Sam Williamson, a crusty political liberal and immigration lawyer, and his homemaker wife, Sophie Ann. Older sister Jane teaches at an Episcopal school in Houston, where older brother Peter is an immigration lawyer. Marianne grew up around this stuff, says Sam, 82, pulling volumes of Thomas Aquinas, the Quran, and the Hebrew New Testament from his law office shelf. Early on, Marianne developed her own relationship with a higher power. When she was a baby of 3 or so, I would come in to kiss her goodnight, says Sophie Ann. Half the time she'd be sitting in her bed with her eyes closed and her little hands clasped under her chin, and she'd say, "Go away, Mommy, I'm talking to God." That's funny. She also had a precocious sense of the theatrical. "I used to do a lot of pretending I was Eleanor Roosevelt," Williamson said, remembering how she wondered if the First Lady's homeliness diminished her impact as a committed humanitarian. "I kept thinking, could makeup have made a difference?" Probably, unfortunately, at that time. After graduating from Houston's Bel Air High School, Williamson put in 2 years studying theater and philosophy at Pomona College in Claremont, California. Marianne was always picking up stray mystics, says her Pomona roommate, Linda Obst, now a film producer. A part of her was always looking for something eclectic in life. In 1973, Williamson moved to New York City to pursue a career as a cabaret singer. There she fell into months of deep depression, or as she would call, just a little sad, after her breakup with a boyfriend. Rock biographer Albert Goldman, who employed Williamson as a secretary, remembers her as a sweet, warm-hearted girl. She was incapable of figuring out what she would do, and she was crying all the time. If only there was something to help her. 2 years later, Williamson headed for San Francisco, where musician and boyfriend Johnny Timothy recalls she was avidly interested in Zen meditation and the Ouija board. "She had a theatrical intensity," said Timothy. "If she didn't like something, she hated it. If she felt betrayed, it was something out of Isbin." In 1979, Williamson returned to Houston, where she ran a metaphysical bookstore. She was married briefly to a businessman whom she refuses to discuss. Why can't we discuss your love life? I'm interested. I mean, I know, whatever, you don't have to, but I want to know. Who are you married to? Who's your baby daddy? And sang Gershwin standards at Rockefeller's, a Houston nightclub. By 1983, jobless and with just $1,000 in her pocket, Williamson moved to Los Angeles, where her interest in the spirit and the stage finally coalesced. There, Williamson began speaking to groups at the nonprofit Philosophical Research Society, drawing much of her material from A Course in Miracles, an arcane religious tract that stresses love and forgiveness as a basis of spiritual life. In time, her lectures evolved into a trendy amalgam of Christianity, Buddhism, pop psychology, and 12-step recovery wisdom. Her knack, in the words of record producer Jeff Olmsted, a former boyfriend, she got a lot of boyfriends and stuff in the entertainment industry. Interesting. Is making spiritual matters relevant to her own generation, something that young, liberal, urban professionals can relate to. Within a few years, her lectures on such topics as romantic delusions and the fear of abandonment began to draw Hollywood. You don't have to give up your whole existence in order to lead a spiritual life, says actress Teresa Russell, commenting on Williamson's appeal. You can be semi-enlightened. That's the sort of message she's talking about. That's an interesting concept, semi-enlightened. Okay. That's what I think most people think they are. Like, I'm not that crazy, but I'm definitely very in tune with the universe. Like, okay, I've read The Secret. Sometimes Marianne's approach is gentle and nurturing. At the Manhattan Center for Living on a recent event, approximately 100 people, mostly gay men, sat quietly in folding chairs as Williamson intoned. I want you to close your eyes, she said softly. We see a golden temple, and inside that temple is an inner light. We are in that light, joined together in the presence of God. She can also be refreshingly practical. At the same meeting, a young Frenchman stood to say that he was being forced to leave the country because of an expired visa and feared that he would be unable to re-enter the U.S. and tend to his HIV-positive lover. What you need is a good immigration lawyer, said Williamson. Pray to God to send you one right away. Okay, good first part, bad second part. Pray to God to send you one. Or call my dad or brother who are actually immigration lawyers I could hook you up with. Williamson, who has Riley referred to herself as the bitch for God. I should have led with that. Yeah, she calls herself the bitch for God. Acknowledges that her interpersonal skills could stand some improvement. Nobody at my lectures ever hears me say I'm perfect, she says. Am I dramatic at times? Yes. But are my instincts usually right? Yes. If I was a man, I'd be considered a good leader. Now, that is true. However, I don't think it's justification to think like, well, I should be an asshole like men are. Like, I always think when people say that, I'm like, okay, but maybe you should just be better and then call it out when it needs to be called out. But, whatever. As for the specific charges against her, she insists that staff resistance was what damaged the Divine Design auction. If I was able to have the level of control that was appropriate, it would have cost less. That's how people think sometimes, but might not be true. Williamson also maintains that her management moves are based on sound business practice rather than whim. People don't get fired because of Marianne's capricious ways or hormones, she says. It's absolutely inaccurate to say that if Marianne doesn't like someone, they're out of here. It may simply be that in the case of Marianne Williamson, as with other cult figures before her, private life does not and cannot match public expectation. I think some people who have written about her are sort of disappointed, said actor Tony Perkins, an avid follower. They want her to be a goddess of some kind. Whether Williamson wants defecation for herself is something that only she can tell. In the meantime, ruminating on the controversies swirling around her, she draws on the wisdom of her teachings. These are growing pains. Every conflict will be healed, she says with quiet equanimity. I look forward to a happy outcome. We will have a miracle. So there's another article that talked more about like the settlement that went on between her and her former employees. But I don't know where that one went. But yeah, so she at least she admits it and she says like, I'm not perfect. I get it, but yeah. Okay. I think maybe it's time to we can look at the memes or we can look at the Russell Brand interview. But first, let's look at a couple more deleted things. Last thing about the depression, I didn't show this one. This has since been deleted. So that's good, I guess. But this is about more about what her stance is on. Is depression a scam? Is it real? Avatar is real, but depression is a fiction, according to Marianne. It says, code alert. U.S. Preventative Services Task Force says women should be screened for depression during and after pregnancy. Their answer, of course, is to find the right medication. Follow the money on this one. Hormonal changes during and after pregnancy are normal. Mood changes are normal. Meditation helps. Prayer helps. Nutritional support helps. Love helps. Okay. And so I'm not a mom. I've not been pregnant, never have had, a child or had to go through that at this point in my life. I've heard from a lot of people that have gone through that experience. It's like they aren't taken seriously or they have this incredible, horrible after postpartum depression that needed to be taken care of, with medicine. So to say like, just meditate it out, it's a little ridiculous. So just another one that's a little bit odd. And here's another one that she deleted on her Twitter. Anytime any of us move from fear to love, we participate in the morphic field out of which we emerge new possibilities for life on Earth. And I guess morphic field is like the energy field that surrounds you. is how it's used in spirituality. So it's kind of like, okay. Also, I didn't find the tweet. I didn't look back, but she had made comments that there was an earthquake and Hurricane Dorian that came, that if we all just meditated at the same time, Hurricane Dorian would change course. And that the earthquake happened because it was an earthquake somewhere, I don't even know, happened because, everyone's not meditating enough and not conscious enough, that's why the earth is literally shaking. It's like, lady, get a grip, okay? Anyways, okay, let's go to, okay, wait, hold on, let's watch this one. It's only a minute. This is from Hay House. It's a course about the weight loss. I just want to include this. A course in weight loss. It says, what is the connection between spirituality and weight loss? Best-selling author Marianne Williamson is about to answer that question for you in her groundbreaking new work, bringing you 21 spiritual lessons to help you surrender your weight forever. She is thin, so I guess it works. These lessons form a holistic paradigm for weight loss, addressing the spiritual, emotional, and psychological elements involved in what Williamson refers to as conscious weight loss. If you're a food addict, a compulsive eater, or someone who, for any reason, sees food as the enemy, this book is for you. Okay, can't wait. Thanks so much.
Hi, I'm Marianne Williamson. Hi. My newest book is called A Course in Weight Loss, Spiritual Lessons in Surrendering Your Weight Forever. You know, compulsive eating, addictive eating is obviously a problem that many of us have experienced. I'm not a food addict, but there was a time in my life when I was a compulsive eater. I know what it's like to think about food constantly. And like any other problem of this type, we get to a place in our personality where there is some entrenched knot almost, where we simply are not able to live in our power, our strength, our serenity, our love, and get our needs met at the same time. And so it's as though we go into this fractal personality, this place where we behave dysfunctionally, where we self-sabotage, where we, in the case of compulsive eating, actually harm ourselves, thinking while we're doing it that we are comforting and nourishing ourselves. Well, that kind of trigger, that kind of compulsion, that kind of addiction even, supersedes, it trumps our better knowing. But the good news is, God trumps the wound. So if you're interested in learning the ways that we can access the internal power, the spiritual power, the divine power that actually cuts, undercuts, trumps, supersedes, and truly changes and transforms those compulsive, addictive energies that, again, keep us stuck in those patterns, whether it has to do with food or anything else, I hope you'll pick up my book, and I truly hope that it serves you well.
Okay, that Louise Hayes Publishing House. She believes that you can just believe and think. If you're overweight, it's because you want to be overweight. Okay, I'm just curious. That was a little interesting. This is also short. A Course in Weight Loss addresses the true causal root of your weight loss issues. Okay, I just want to watch one more. This is Tearing Down the Wall. That first one hooked me.
I'm Marianne Williamson. I want to talk to you now about Chapter 1 in my book, A Course in Weight Loss. The name of the chapter is Tearing Down the Wall. You know, why
is this music so loud in all these videos?
I was a compulsive eater. When I had that problem of the weight that I carried around and didn't seem to be able to permanently get rid of. Just about that time, I started doing A Course in Miracles. And I was not thinking consciously that I was praying for a miracle in the area of my weight. But what I realized doing the course is that one day I looked down and the weight was simply gone. And I knew why. I knew in that moment that the weight itself had been the manifestation of a wall in my mind. And that wall had to do with my fear of other people. And as the Course in Miracles had dismantled my thinking of fear and replaced it with the thinking of love, then I had learned to reach out my hand across the wall. And what had happened was that as I reached out my hand, the wall disappeared. It disappeared in my mind, and ultimately it disappeared on my body. So what we're doing here in Chapter 1 is we are taking a deep look at the bricks that make up that wall.
Make me
One
skinny.
brick, shame. One brick, neediness. One brick, dishonesty. One brick, whatever these aspects of our personality are, that we know form a brick, that we know keep us away from other people, a sense that we're inferior, a sense that we're superior. a fear of the future, whatever it is. And in this chapter, we will go very specifically and deeply into the bricks.
Okay, so whatever. This is like, oh, I started taking care of my spirituality, and then I just lost the weight, and my weight was actually a wall in my mind. Okay. But then she gets up on the debate stage, and obviously this is years before she was running for president, and says like the food companies are the problem, and and the medical pharmaceutical companies are the problem. If that was actually the problem, okay, but then how can you change it by changing your mindset and like just changing going through the bricks that are holding you back? Like, which one is it? Is it an actual like conspiracy, or not even conspiracy? Is it an actual problem that we can fix, or is it all in our head? That's where I'm confused about where she's coming from at any given time. It's like, which one do you believe in? Because you tend to jump between both, and it's a little confusing. Okay, let's go to Russell Brand now. My former bestie, Russell Brand. He used to have a YouTube channel called The Trues. It was like True News. And I used to really like it a lot. And he used to talk about like, I don't know. I don't even remember what he used to talk about. It wasn't like it was somewhat political, but it was more about like, we need to, go to the root cause of things. And at that time I was like very into that. Like, yeah, we should have yoga in the schools and I don't know, stuff like that. And he would talk about it. And I was like very on board, and he made it funny, and he was insightful and intellectual. And now I'm just like, I don't know. A lot of stuff he posted seems like fear mongering to me, or like, did you know that corruption happens in companies? Like, yeah, I do know that, but he'll specifically pick out, very right-wing positive examples. It's like, okay, well, what about this other stuff? He's just like, nah, I don't want to hear that. It's like, okay. Anyways, here we go. Here's the dude, this little preview of what we'll talk about with him in the future. So we'll see how much we do, and then we'll get into it.
Episode of Under the Skin from Luminary. I speak to Marianne.
Also, one thing I will say about Russell, he's like, the media is against us, and they're in bed with this company and that company, and whatever. Okay, and I don't disagree with that to a point. Like, there is biases when it comes to your advertisers. There has to be. However, and he's like, we're silencing, we're not getting the message out. He goes on like Rumble, which is like an inaccessible app that no one's on, basically, so he can talk more about conspiracy theories. And then he would have his podcast. He had one on Luminary, which he had to pay for, which I like stopped listening to him because I'm like, I'm not going to pay to listen to a podcast when I listen to everyone else's, for free. And then he always puts it behind a paywall. So it's like, do you really want to talk to people, or do you want to make money yourself? Because that's also called greed too, in an individual sense. He's very big on calling out companies, which I'm all about, but then look at yourself for a second as well. That's my only thing with him. Okay, here we go.
Much of the other great content that Luminary offer. Thank you very much. Marianne Williamson, thank you for joining me, Russell Brand, on Under the Skin. We're having this conversation at a wellness festival, the Wellspring event. What obligation do you feel when you're addressing an audience, particularly in the field of personal development?
First of all, thank you for having me.
Oh, all right, yeah,
I'm
thanks.
honored to be here. I have always felt in my career a profound sense of responsibility, because when you are talking about spiritual issues, you are talking about someone's psyche. And people are holding a space for the possibility that you're saying something that will deeply affect the way they look at the world and how they behave in the world. So that has always seemed to me very serious. Today, probably even more so, because of the state of the world and our need to rise to the occasion of saving our democracy and saving our planet in time.
When did you begin your journey in this area of personal and spiritual development? How did it happen?
I was always very interested in spiritual topics, starting even when I was like a teenager. And my mother used to always joke about how when I was a little girl, how my prayers went on for so long. So I always had this interest in anything philosophical or religious or spiritual. And then I was very much a child of the 60s and the 70s, where
we would read Ram Dass and the I Ching and do spiritual things in the morning and go to anti-war protests in the afternoon. So it was very much part of my generational outlook of that time, that there was this spiritual philosophical revolution and this cultural sexual political revolution. It was all going on at the same time. It was all of one.
That's very curious, because obviously now there's a sort of a bifurcation of those two ideas, that activism is regarded as a kind of a secular pursuit, with the assumption that what we're dealing with is a material and political conversation, and spirituality increasingly has become regarded as either extreme or irrelevant. How do you feel that we can change people's perception of spirituality so that it's neither of those things?
Well, I'll say you can change people's perspective by getting rid of the scammers, not platforming each other for $1, thinking critically about what you're actually saying, considering all income levels when you give blanketed advice that basically blames everybody for their own problems, and stop doing them in scammy hotel seminar rooms, and start making it be $1 million and stop having cults. I don't know. That's a start. That's the hesitation, I think, from America, is all of those issues, and from failed spiritual pursuits of the past. Like, there's been a lot of cults that have formed that have started on the basis of, we're different. We have this knowledge. I have, absorbed or written down these words from a different source and all that. It's like, that is control of other people, and thinking that you're better or more advanced than others, I think, is sort of where people go, I ain't getting involved in that if they're smart. And telling people, you don't need to get depression medication, just listen to my seminar. It's like, that's the part that I don't like. That would be a start, Russell. Thank you. You didn't ask me that, but I'm just going to answer it for you.
I have never felt, nor do I, that it's my job to change anybody's perception of anything.
No?
No, I think with spirituality, just like when talking about recovery, I think it's attraction, not promotion. So I don't think of myself as here to change anyone. I'm just here to sing the song that I feel in my heart. But to me, I can talk about spiritually, not as an effort to change anyone else, but to me, spirituality, that bifurcation you're talking about, is unspiritual. Gandhi said, anyone who doesn't think religion has anything to do with politics doesn't understand religion. No serious religious or spiritual path gives anyone a pass on addressing the suffering of other sentient beings. So this sort of perverse and artificial notion of spirituality that has grown up in the last few decades, very much, as you and I were talking about earlier, this ethos of only in modern capitalist America could you possibly dream up a spirituality which actually gives itself a pass and uses this notion of spirituality as a justification for political disengagement. The good news is that people are, I think, waking up to what the Course in Miracles would call wrong-mindedness of this.
Oh, wow. I'm going to ask you about that wrong-mindedness in a minute. I've even written it down on my notes here. It makes me wonder, Marianne, how insidious and all-encompassing this ideology within which we unconsciously live is for us to unthinkingly accept ideas such as the apolitical nature of spirituality. It makes me think it's everywhere and everything, that we're kind of breathing an invisible gas, that we're bewildered by an invisible ideology.
Well, I think if we're old enough, we remember a time when this sociopathic economic perspective did not yet dominate everything. And if you were born after a certain period of time, you don't remember a time when that would have been considered insane. So now you don't even realize it. People are brought up to just so inundated by this monstrosity born of Milton Friedman and Ayn Rand, this trickle-down economic perspective that says market forces matter, market forces rule. It really, which amounts to, doesn't matter who has to die, doesn't matter what happens to be done to the planet, and we're all in lockstep with it.
And now, and that's why I think those of us who are older and remember a time when, I take seriously my role as keeper of the story. There was a time when it was understood that capitalism too had to have an ethic, had to have ethics. Corporations should have ethics. Our economy should have ethics. That money should not be the bottom line. That love should be the...
I'm bored as hell. I'm sorry. I agree. Ethics. We should have ethics and everything. I think self-help should also have ethics. Spirituality group should have ethics. And yet here we are and they don't much. So, okay. I abandon this. I can't put myself through boringness. I'm sorry. They feel like they're so profound sometimes. It's like, you're just kind of saying nothing. I can't. I will refuse to go down that road. I wanted to bring up something that I thought of during this that I thought was important. You know how Rachel Hollis was accused of and basically proven true that she and Jay Shetty, two of the, our darlings in the industry, accused of stealing quotes, and that, Harriet Tubman thing, and like, I think, what was the other one with Rachel? She was not Maya Angelou. She had, basically taken that and co-opted it and made it into a rise again, come to my conference tweet. This is funny because Marianne Williamson is actually, she is the creator of a very famous quote that is often attributed to Nelson Mandela. So it's actually Nelson Mandela who is stealing from Marianne Williamson. And I know that sounds weird, but it is true. And I think that is an interesting point. Hold on. So, and I've heard it many, many times, and I don't know how it got confused, but basically she wrote in one of her books, I'm sure you've heard of it before. Let me see. Okay, stand by. So it's one of her most famous passages, or her famous passage, kept getting cited as Nelson Mandela's quote. Okay. Okay. All right. It says, the conversation around her candidacy hasn't been particularly focused on her policy positions. It's mostly been focused on her rhetoric, her Katharine Hepburn-esque accent. Okay. So it's transatlantic, Katharine Hepburn, hidden Texas. That's an interesting take. Her new agey speeches about harnessing the power of love, and that time she described herself as a bitch for God. But one of Williamson's most famous pieces of rhetoric, a passage from her best-selling 1992 self-help book, A Return to Love, often isn't attributed to Williamson. For almost 25 years, Williamson's quote has been consistently misattributed to Nelson Mandela. Isn't that so bizarre? It's like, damn, like a self-help person actually has something profound to say and they can't get it. It goes directly to Nelson Mandela. Okay, so this is the quote. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate, Williamson writes in A Return to Love. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small doesn't serve the world. Okay, so I've heard that at like graduation speeches. I've heard that, spoken throughout motivational talks just generally, and I always thought it was Nelson Mandela as well, so I was shocked to hear that was Marianne Williamson. It's a stirring inspirational passage tailor-made to remind people to be their best selves, which is probably what led commencement day speakers to pounce on it. In 1998, the New York Times reported that Hillary Clinton, astronaut Mae Jemison, and former Spelman College president Jonita B. Cole had all quoted Williamson's deepest fear passage during graduation speeches, and all of them had attributed the quote to Nelson Mandela. And Marianne Williamson has a friendship or some sort of political or professional connection to Hillary Clinton because she came to the White House when Bill Clinton was in office, and she spiritually advised Hillary Clinton, apparently. Clinton and company, here you go, weren't the first or last to make that error. The website Quote Investigator, essentially a Snopes for quotes, has found examples of the misattribution going back to the 96 when a columnist for the Nashville paper The Tennessean credited the quote to Nelson Mandela's inauguration address. It showed up attributed to Mandela in the 2006 movie Aquila and the Bee and the 2005 movie Coach Carter. As recently as 2017, CNN put it in their CNN Heroes Award show citing Mandela. Both Williamson herself and the Nelson Mandela Foundation have issued official corrections about where the quote comes from, yet it continues to persist. But while the quote might not tell us anything about Nelson Mandela, it says a lot about Marianne Williamson. Embedded in her most famous quote are the ideas that are fundamental to Marianne Williamson's appeal and make her a disconcerting choice for president. People like to match famous quotes with also famous people. That's why misattributions happen. Excuse me. The writer behind Quote Investigator, who uses the pen name Garrison O'Toole and is the author of Hemingway Didn't Say That, says that this kind of misattribution is common. O'Toole's theory is that people like to attribute popular quotes to celebrities whose public personas seem to fit the quote. And since Williamson's Our Deepest Fear passage is all about striving through doubts to be one's best self, it requires an inspirational figure to match it. On a superficial level, if nothing else, Mandela fits the bill. That assumption might not bear close examination. Can you imagine Nelson Mandela exhorting his listeners to believe that they are gorgeous and fabulous? But if you're just taking in the general idea of the quote as being something about believing in yourself, well then, who better to give that advice than Nelson Mandela, who overcame so much? In the popular mind, Nelson Mandela is a figure of inspiration who was a leader of a successful struggle of liberation. He transitioned into the role of a president and statesman. The quotation suggests that one can overcome internal fears and achieve success even when the path forward is difficult. The arc of Mandela's life provides an illustration of the quotation's message. I guess they're calling her a controversial figure, which she is. So they want to use her words, but they don't want to give her credit, is what it seems. That does seem kind of screwed up. I'm surprised she wouldn't talk about that more as a candidate. Like, look, this is my quote. I'm a famous orator. This is a misconception about me. Okay. Which means that now the quote has been reconciled with, not with Mandela's popular legacy, but with Williamson's, kind of. Okay. So talking about the book, about Oprah and the Elizabeth Taylor wedding, and then talking about her being a bad boss. Okay, let's see. This is long. She thinks sinful thoughts will manifest. Okay, let's read this part. This is interesting. When Williamson says our fears hurt us, she's being extremely literal. She thinks sinful thoughts will manifest in our bodies. It places the individual at the center of the world, and it appeals to our sense of grandeur. Ah, yes, you might think, reading this, I am the most important person in the world. I always suspected it. True. But this philosophy can also lead to its adherents, blaming themselves for every terrible or even just mildly unpleasant thing that happens, both in the world in general and to themselves in particular. It's in that spirit that A Return to Love features a long section in which Williamson explains how she brought a vicious sore throat upon herself just after moving to a new city before she had established herself with a regular doctor. Williamson had just been in 3 separate car accidents before the incident in question, she says. During each incident, Williamson had retained her faith that she was not subject to the effect of worldly danger, because worldly danger is an illusion, and hence was not harmed or hurt in any way. But she found that after her accidents, she received special attention from her friends who rubbed my neck and back gently and oozed gentleness all over me. The attention felt good, Williamson writes in horrified italics. Being sick made people love me more. This is very Louise Hay of her, where it's like, I got cancer for the attention. Okay. Williamson's enjoyment of her friend's sympathy, she writes, was a sin. It led her to seeing herself as a body rather than a spirit, which is a loveless rather than loving self-identification. And it was because of this weakness of her mind that she was paid the wages of her sin. She concludes triumphantly, thus my sore throat. But luckily, as soon as Williamson repented before God, he healed her. She stopped at a bar, and when a man began to try to chat her up, she decided that in the spirit of the Course of Miracles, she should listen to him rather than blow him off. Williamson's understanding of the Course contains rather a lot of advice about women submitting to men and how that submission is a true sign of strength. Ew. And who should that man be but a doctor with a prescription pad and a sense of ethics flexible enough that he immediately wrote Williamson a prescription for her sore throat on the spot? This is a miracle, Williamson told the doctor. I prayed for healing and I corrected my thoughts, but the Holy Spirit couldn't give me an instantaneous healing because I'm not advanced enough yet to receive it. It would be too threatening to my belief system. So he had to enter the level of my understanding. And you were there, but if I hadn't opened my heart to you, I would have never been able to receive the miracle because I wouldn't have been open. Oh, okay. See, this is what I'm talking about, where I'm like, I'm on board with some of the stuff, you know, like you got some good ideas, but then it comes to this like literal, like, oh, God brought me this doctor and told me to go to this bar and I talked to him so he could write me this. It's a miracle. It's like, that's a stretch, lady. The belief that it is our own individual, unloving, and fearful thoughts that make us ill and that create sadness in the world and also give us sore throats might make sense for a self-help author in the business of selling books about learning to love oneself. Yeah, that's what I think. It's like, if you can control everything, here's a book where I teach you how to control things better, and then you'll be healed for everything. But for a presidential candidate, it's more troubling. Yeah, it's like, you poors, just think about being in abundance. You don't need a social security net. I'm not saying that she doesn't support social security, but that belief system would lend itself to be like, just think better, you bad thinkers. If we were personally responsible for the bad things that happen to us, then we are personally responsible when we are the victims of crime, of war, illness, and poverty. Structural inequality isn't to blame for the problems. We are. That questionable belief does not carry through into many of Williamson's proposed policy ideas. Yeah, so that's the positive, but it's also confusing as to why you believe in this, but then your policies are different. She was an early proponent of offering reparations to Black Americans, and she supports programs like universal pre-K and free college. But fundamental to what Williamson is selling is the idea that everything that is wrong and bad in the world comes from individual people, and that our sins will be manifested in our bodies. That's why, in the end, the most important line of Williamson's most famous quote isn't, "Who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous?" It's that brisk, admonishing corrective that follows, actually, who are you not to be? I don't quite get that, but interesting. So I just thought that was a interesting piece of lore to go along with all of this stuff. So she's not only got a spiritual diet book, she's got a misattributed Nelson Mandela quote. She's a bitch for God. Her big book that she believes in the most, which is her Bible essentially, is dictated by Jesus. Marianne was Jewish, I guess, previously, or sort of she's Jewish, as they say. As George Santos would say, she's Jewish. She was born Jewish, raised Jewish, but sort of is now spiritually. And then her roommate was Laura Dern. So, very interesting. Okay, what else? It's not that late, actually. I have to order food because our car is in the shop. Oh, let's look at the memes, and then we'll wrap it up here. There's so much, but we gotta keep it light and fluffy. Okay, and this is, I don't use crystals. She doesn't like crystals, apparently, even though I put them in the White House. She does like orbs, though. So I've heard. And she loves Avatar, as we now know. This is a meme. Marianne Williamson just needs 2 or 3 hot Bushwick witch girls to run her social media, and she will absolutely run away with this. Okay, this is from the New York Times, believe it or not. From 2019, okay. It began, like so many modern presidential campaign stories do, as a joke. Sarah Marilyn, a 28-year-old Brooklyn social media strategist, didn't bother to watch the first Democratic debates in June. She was only vaguely aware that they were happening until the memes began cascading onto her phone. She chased the best jokes, fell into a kind of Photoshop fugue state, and emerged as the co-founder of a Facebook page dedicated to the candidate with the most stimulating content, Marianne Williamson's dank meme stash. This is so part of that time frame. Now it's called Psychic Dolphin Garage. Okay. Yikes. I guess this is someone else's page now, I'm assuming. Jeez. Just people who fake celebrity deaths now? Lovely. Okay. It only took a few hours for her ironic interest to bloom into something more. Was it just her, or was Marianne Williamson actually kind of making sense? Somebody tweeted that Marianne Williamson just needs okay, I just read that one. As Marilyn waded into the campaign, she met resistance from Williamson's old school supporters, the kind of people who sincerely seek her spiritual self-help content. When Marilyn shared a meme featuring the candidate in a meditative pose that said, "Realign America's chakras again," somebody called her a hater. Others worried that mocking memes would undermine Williamson's claim to a serious run. Williamson herself seemed a little spooked. "I am not a cult leader," she clarified on Twitter. "Why do people make crystal jokes?" she pleaded to the New York Times. "I don't use crystals." But Marilyn wasn't concerned. She only thinks about portals. She thinks Avatar's a portal to saving humanity. She doesn't believe in crystals, though. It's like, okay. But Marilyn wasn't concerned. She'd seen what happened with President Trump, and she believed that Williamson could cast a similar kind of spell. In a modern campaign, unseriousness can be a virtue. We are living in a time when 2 meme-literate teenage boys are directing the campaign of an 89-year-old former senator. They are the political equivalent of children stacked in a trench coat, angling to buy a ticket to the presidential race. And they are riffing, really, on the example set by Trump himself, that joke candidacies can be laced with serious potential. In Marilyn's Bushwick apartment in August, we spoke about the proximity she sees between Williamson and Trump. Both of them are talking to people who don't take politics very seriously, she said. These political cynics think the whole system is corrupt, she added. The only way they're going to engage is if it's not going to take serious energy from their souls. I mean, I guess that's true, sort of. There's a persistent meme format known as the expanding brain meme that depicts a human brain growing in size and strength until it's so intellectually powerful that mind lasers blast from its skull. Somebody crafted a version of it that perfectly articulates Marilyn's position. Marilyn's? Who's Marilyn? Oh, it's gone now. The most intellectually evolved stance in the 2020 election, the laser brain one, is to support Williamson both ironically and unironically. Perhaps the giddy feeling of memeing could translate into the grassroots energy necessary to lift a guru to the White House. I mean, has anything Joe Biden has ever said supplied the natural high produced by grafting Williamson's face into a scene of the Na'vi people of Avatar? All Marilyn knew is that she had never been so excited about politics. So it was called the Orb Gang Love. Oh, it's just a picture. Follow. Within a month, she was juggling 20 meme pages and managing online efforts across chat service Discord, the live streaming platform Twitch, Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, and Instagram, plus a candy-colored central hub, orbganglove.love. Let's see, is it still up? Orb Gang. She helped leverage the crystal ball emoji to inject Williamson's ethereal vibe into the wonky discourse, calling Williamson her Orb Mom. And the moment Orb Gang, styled after the Yang Gang, her fans of Andrew Yang, posters on her pages often addressed their messages to either ironic supporters or unironic supporters, but increasingly, that was a distinction without a difference. Thanks to this group, one supporter wrote on Marianne Williamson's dank meme stash, "I would now for real vote for Marianne Williamson." I don't think orbgang.love is working anymore. When the second debate came around in July, Marilyn attended a watch party in Manhattan. I descended into the basement to find it stuffed with a diverse array of her fellow travelers. There were younger men in tank tops and older ones in suspenders. One woman clutched Nancy Pelosi's memoir, and another wore a fez, which she was very much pulling off. A guy in a Dallas Cowboys hat and a River sandals engaged me in a cross-armed double handshake and said, "We've closed the energy circle." Okay. We do not see much of Marianne Williamson that night. Long shot candidates with more traditional qualifications, John Delaney, Tim Ryan, crowded out the margins of the televised debate. But the real action was not happening on CNN. As Beto O'Rourke droned on about his administration on TV, Marilyn stared into her phone, its glow revealing her beatific smile as she thumbed out tweets like, "My spicy orb mom, there is no one but you." A few other incisive political points, Williamson's speech advocating reparations and aesthetic quirks, she dropped a yada yada yada, would be enough to sustain the org gang for weeks. By the end of the evening, Williamson had become the most searched for candidate on Google in every state except Montana. When she walked off the stage, a reporter asked her to rate her performance, and she replied, "I'll tell you later when I see the memes." Soon she would share on her Instagram her face photoshopped into Game of Thrones, with Williamson styled as Oh my God, I never watched it. Melissander. Sorry for all the fans out there. A priestess who is secretly very old and works blood magic in the service of her god, the Lord of Light. The next morning, Marilyn texted me a link to a Twitch stream where Orb gang members crowdsource fresh memes. The Williamson memers run a shadow campaign discussing strategy, philosophy, and psychology. The day after the debate, they were capitalizing on a report from the Hill newspaper that claimed they were organizing an occult task force of chaos magicians, witches, and energy workers. Okay, so interesting. I guess it worked to a degree. But she didn't end up actually making to the point of being voted for. Here's just, okay. This is like, meet the candidates, a quick thing. In an ideal world, would anyone own handguns? She says, I am not for messing with the Bill of Rights. Okay. Would your focus be improving the Affordable Care Act or replacing it with a single payer? She says, the wisest thing for us to do is to have a Medicare for all type plan as a public option. I think that's a good idea. Do you think it's possible for the next president to stop climate change? Climate change is the greatest moral challenge of our generation. Okay. Do you think Israel meets international standards of human rights? As president of the United States, I would have an equally robust commitment to both the legitimate security concerns of Israel and the human rights of Palestinians. Okay. Who is your hero and why? Personal heroes, father and mother. Political heroes, Robert F. Kennedy, Abraham Lincoln, Thomas Jefferson, Franklin Roosevelt, Dwight D. Eisenhower. Okay, sure. Would there be American troops in Afghanistan at the end of your first term? I would make no move in Afghanistan until I first spoke to Afghan women. Interesting. Do you think illegal immigration is a major problem in the United States? It's a major spiritual and moral principle of the United States that we are open and welcoming to the stranger. All right. Where would you go on your first international trip as president? Girlfriend, we're going to New Zealand. I can tell you what my first international calls would be, and that is to the leaders of Europe to say we're back. Describe the last time you were embarrassed. Why? Right now, because I'm kind of embarrassed because I don't know what it is. Okay. Do you think President Trump has committed crimes in office? It is a pillar of American jurisprudence that someone is considered innocent until proven guilty, and therefore I would not say that the president has committed crimes. Do you support or oppose the death penalty? I oppose the death penalty. Should tech giants like Facebook, Amazon, and Google be broken up? Giantism is a malfunction in the body, and giantism is a malfunction in society. Are you open to expanding the size of the Supreme Court? I'm not convinced that expanding the size of the Supreme Court is going to fix anything. When did your family first arrive in the United States and how? The story of my family and its immigration to the United States is one of those very typical but very moving stories of immigrants who came with very, very little and found everything. Does everyone deserve to have $1 billion? I do believe, does anyone? Does everyone? Yes. That's my stance. Yes, we do. Does anyone deserve to have $1 billion? I do believe that there is such a thing as righteous commerce. Okay, I want to kind of hear this one.
Yes, there are people who deserve to have $1 billion. I do believe that there is such a thing as righteous commerce. The problem is not that some people in America are rich. The problem in America is that not enough people can get rich. The problem is not just the accumulation of wealth. The problem is that we have a government that now passes policies that make it easier for those who already have a lot of money to get richer and for those who don't have much money even to thrive. So that's the problem. But some people have made $1 billion in righteous ways, and good on them. I think they should pay more in taxes, for sure. But I have no problem with the idea that they deserve to have it if, in fact, they made it righteously.
Righteously? What does that mean to you? Explain that. Like, they didn't get it in a drug deal or what? Because I feel like you're having to... not scam, but like pay people below living wage a lot of times for you to have that $1 billion. Okay, these celebrities, if you're interested, want you to vote for Marianne Williamson. Okay. Nicole Richie. She wants you to vote for her. Nicole Richie says, I've had the opportunity to listen to Marianne, to get to know her, to listen to her message, and it's given me the strength to send the right message to my children, because the children of America are our future, and we need to make sure that we are not only living up to our past, but taking it even further. Okay. Even Longoria, Jesse Ventura, Deepak Chopra, shocking, Kim Kardashian. Courtney and I spent some time with Marianne Williamson at her congressional candidate press event the other night. She is running as an independent, and I am very pleased with all her efforts and goals for the future. Interesting. This must be old. Frances Fisher. And Jane Lynch. Jane Lynch seems to still be a fan because she tweeted about her recently. I know that Marianne Williamson cannot be bought, and that she will vote from the heart in combination with her brain, which of course is wisdom, and we need more wise people in Congress, says Jane Lynch. Mm-hmm. Dun, dun, dun. So those are the big things. The things that I think are the most important are, her stance on medicine and what gives you diseases. I would raise an eyebrow for me, definitely concerns. I don't love that she has been accused of, harassing her employees, because I feel like, okay, if you have an administration where you're harassing the people that are working for you, trying to get things done, that's never a good environment for anyone to be in. And I just find her beliefs to be out there and not really super applicable to many people's lives. And I feel like she's a little fake when it comes to maybe like what she actually believes, the depth of her convictions to what she presents publicly. But do I think she'll be president ever? No, I don't. I don't think she's a serious candidate in the sense of her party is already in office, so she'd have to wait another 4 years to even go again. And I don't see it. But you never know. I just think she'd have to get a lot of people on board to something that they're probably uncomfortable with. And I want to just touch on this for a second. This is Gabby Bernstein. Gabby Bernstein was mentored by Marianne Williamson. She's like a big fan and knows her personally. And Marianne wrote like the intro of her book, I believe. And Gabby Bernstein is also very big into A Course in Miracles. That's what she teaches on. That's what all her methods and theories are. Now, Gabby takes it a step further than Marianne does and says that she is guided, that she was like forced by a spirit to go get a piece of paper and write down words that were not her own. And that's how she came up with her book concepts, which I find to be bullshit. But, like she's even taken Marianne's teachings and upped it up a level of like, woo-woo-ness. But this is something that I found or saw on her Instagram. And I don't know what she's necessarily talking about, but I have some thoughts and it sort of relates to this. But it says, in this week's episode of Dear Gabby podcast, that's her podcast, obviously, I'll share why you should avoid gurus and teach you how to return to love when trust has been broken. So I think it's sort of funny. It's like, don't listen to gurus. I'm going to teach you how to do it. It's like, okay, what do you think you are? But this is what she has to say about gurus.
You out there who are perceiving themselves as spiritual teachers, thank you for your commitment. And I'm going to ask you to really consistently look inward. What are my intentions? What are my intentions? What are my intentions? And when you notice that your ego is in the way, do whatever it takes to get back to consciousness. If your ego's in the way, put down the microphone, turn off the Zoom, get off the call, get back into alignment. For those of you out there who are...
I think that's a wonderful message. Now, I find it ironic that she's the one delivering this message, but maybe that's helpful. Maybe, these people who go out there and try to scam need to hear this from someone that they believe in and trust, compared to someone like me who's very, very skeptical and against the entire industry. It's like, easy to write me off as like, oh, she doesn't get it. But maybe, someone like this may get through. However, I think that she suffers and struggles with ego and profiting and leading people on. Like, when I bought her book, I haven't finished reading it, but I read the part that she kept doing these interviews where she was talking about like her discovering that she was sexually abused as a child, and she's like, the story's in the book, and she kept like teasing it in all these interviews, and I'm like, I want to hear the story because she said it like was life changing, whatever. And I read that part of the book, and she's like, I don't remember what it was, but I know that I was abused. It's like, what? Like to me, it felt like that whole thing was just to get people interested enough and curious enough because she had talked about it so much and so deeply and how like life-changing it was. And then to buy the book, and it's the one, the Happy Days book. It's not, it's like, oh, something happened. I think I remember in like I was hypnotized and I remember feeling something, and I don't know what happened, but you know, it definitely happened. It's like, okay, that's weird. I don't know why you're making this book about this and like, you know, promoting it as if it's like some life-changing book when you had like, you know, you think something happened to you. I don't know. It was very odd. Here's another one where she's talking about this topic a little bit.
Anyone out there who calls themselves a guru, run the other way. Those teachers, at times and many times and far too often, misuse their power and teach from a place of ego rather than love. I'm going to warn people to make sure that in your heart you trust who you are following, you trust the messages that you are being led to. Everybody's got a microphone these days. But the question is, have they done the work to have their voice be amplified? Anyone out there who calls them...
It's like, what does the work mean? Like, go to a bunch of other scammy conferences, like do a Kundalini yoga class, like, and to be fair, she, you know, there's been many accusations in the Kundalini yoga community about like sexual assault. And she made one post at least that said like, she stands with the women who have accused the leadership because she is very involved in the Kundalini community. So, you know, that's good. But I also feel like, how are you above the, you know, the issues in the industry, and you're willing to call them out sort of vaguely, but you are somehow not a part of the problem at all? So it just seems like I posted this on my Instagram, and someone I think smartly messaged me and said, she's trying to get ahead of the curve a little bit, where it's like, this is kind of going out of style perhaps, or there's people who are saying this is all garbage and this industry is riddled with problems and it's all a scam. And, you know, she wants to get ahead of that. Like, she's like, I call people out in 2023, you know, because you're planning that like by 2027, the whole industry is going to be different because people aren't going to be as gullible or as dumb, hopefully, fingers crossed. So maybe she's trying to get ahead of it. I was like, that's a great point. I never thought of it that way. So it's interesting that could be true. But yeah, so she's, you know, I haven't really looked into her in a while. I had my thoughts about her in a video if you're interested in going into a deep dive on her. She's one of the less problematic people, I think, in this space, but definitely deserves criticism and is not above being investigated in you know, not investigated like criminally, but investigated by me. Okay, in my opinion. All right, let's see, is there anything else? We already know why we're sad. She answered that question for us. She talked to Anderson Cooper 3 years ago. She talked to Russell Brand before. This is being rejected because of your spiritual beliefs. The difference between magic and miracles. Talking about the Course in Miracles. And one time someone asked her, it was in one of the interviews I was watching, it was like, do you believe that A Course in Miracles was, you know, like dictated by Jesus, because that's what it is. That's what the book claims. And she's like, well, no, it doesn't talk about that in the book. It's like, yeah, but the author who you knew or knew of, at least, that's what she says she got the information from. The authority is Jesus talking to her. She's like, well, that's not the point. It's like, well, isn't that sort of, you know, relevant to the whole thing? Okay, let's watch one more. We'll just do a final watch, and then we'll call it a night. How about that? We'll do George Stephanopoulos. Here's a quick fact about George Stephanopoulos. His key to success in his life is that he and his wife have sex every single day, no matter what, is what he claims. or claimed like a couple years ago when I heard the interview. It's like that's his secret to happiness and longevity is that him and his wife do it daily. No exceptions.
Just before she announced, Marianne Williamson sat down with our chief Washington correspondent, John Karl, to talk about her long shot challenge.
Why do you want to be president?
I want to be president because this country needs to make an economic U-turn. And the system that effectuates and perpetuates that kind of income and opportunity inequality is not changing itself. It tweaks itself every once in a while. There's some incremental change. But the devastation, the ubiquitous economic despair and human devastation that is produced by this sociopathic economic system is not changing. And it's not going to change if we continue to elect the same old same.
You have been called, I think it was the Associated Press, said you are the longest of long shots. Why do you think you can do this?
I would bet that the Associated Press also said that Hillary Clinton was a shoo-in. I'm sure that they would have
I don't know if they would have used that language.
Maybe
actually.
not,
No,
but that
no.
system, you know exactly what I'm saying. So the system that is now saying that I'm unserious, I'm not credible, or I'm a long shot, is the very system that protects and maintains this idea that only those whose careers have been entrenched within the system that drove us into a ditch should possibly be considered qualified to lead us out of that ditch. My qualification is not that I know how to perpetuate that system. My qualification is that I know how to disrupt it. And that is what we need.
Disrupt it how?
Well, the first thing you can do is you can cancel all college loan debt. You can make
Now,
sure...
Biden just tried that, and then the court stopped him.
He tried, yes, and some people think if he had just canceled the entire thing, and he had done it immediately, that would not have given his opponents the opportunity to wage the kind of battle against that it has.
But there are rules of how you can accomplish things, and you do have to work through Congress. I mean, we don't have a dictator.
There are
in
many
this
things
country.
that the president can do without working through Congress. I don't see myself as running against Joe Biden. I see this campaign as challenging a system. But this administration has given more
But you do
oil.
have to beat Biden, too. I mean,
Well,
if you're
yes,
gonna
I do.
this, you have
Yes,
to...
I do. And I plan on pointing out, not with any kind of negativity on a personal level. I have no interest in taking pot shots on any personal level to this president. He's a nice man.
Well, let me ask you, because you endorsed Bernie Sanders when you got out of the
I
race.
sure did.
You've called Elizabeth Warren. I think you said...
Okay. I sure did. That was like a little Texas at the end. You heard that? Come here. I think if she went extreme, honestly, I see your comment, Emma. If she let the Bushwick girls run her campaign and she went full into that, like I am a bitch for president, I think she would have a better chance if she leaned into the meme much more, because she fights it too much. Come here, come on. Uppy, uppy. Up, up, up. Come on. Yep, come on. There you go. Yay! Tarot time. Tarot time. Tarot time. You want to say hi? No, I don't want to. Say hi. Mwah. Have you been having fun? Yeah, she's got a donut house, and thanks to all the super chats of the last stream, I ordered her another donut house. That's actually she has a donut house that's like a donut shop, and now she has on the way, probably coming tomorrow, an actual donut that she can hide inside and live inside and play inside. So thank you for all of your super chats last time, because it was like, you know what, I got some good super chats. I made some money tonight. Let's treat Tara. And that's how it works. She only gets fed when you guys pay me. I'm just kidding. Thank you. See, you get to eat some kibble. Thank you to Heather. She's so excited that she can eat tonight. I'm joking, by the way. She's a chubby girl, and she loves it, and it's okay. Heather says, chose a purple cat. Thank you. But I think it comes out as a black cat on the stream side, so thank you. That is Tara. Tara, what do you have to say? Tara's charisma is amazing.
Her charisma is straight up off the charts.
That's Tara. How are you, Tara?
How you doing, Heidi?
How you doing, Heidi?
This is so good.
This is what Taro thinks when I pet her.
This is so good.
Do you like eating kibble?
This is so good.
Okay. So I'll post it on Instagram when she receives the donut house, so everyone can watch. Okay, back to it, Taro.
Bernie Sanders, when you got out of the
I
race,
sure did.
you've called Elizabeth Warren. I think you said she was a legend. I mean,
She is. I love those people.
Both of them have said that Biden deserves re-election.
Well, that's their opinion. And this is the thing.
Are they wrong? So they're wrong?
No, it's not about, no. This is a democracy. This is not about what I think is wrong. Obviously, I believe the American people should be offered an agenda.
Thanks, Mai. Mai says, please feed her. Okay, you get a little more kibble in your bowl. You'll get one more kibble for 5 kibbles, okay? Each kibble is $1. Thank you, Mai. I hope everyone knows I'm joking. People are going to take this out of context. Be like, she doesn't feed her cat. Canceled. Cat canceled. Yeah. If you saw Taro, you would know she eats. And if she didn't, she would eat lizards in the yard. Right? Right. Okay. I have to say this. Thank you, Mai. I have to say this. Wow. Crazy. Crazy cat. Okay.
For genuine, fundamental economic reform. And it should be the voters who decide. It should not be the DNC that decides. It should be the voters who decide. That is what a democracy is.
Do you expect that Biden will debate you?
He certainly should debate me. It's called democracy, and I'm running as well.
And what about this notion of taking New Hampshire out of its position as first? You're going to New Hampshire.
I can tell you that New Hampshireites are not happy about that. The fact that
So will you be competing in the New Hampshire primary,
Absolutely,
even though the
I
DNC
will.
has said...
This is a democracy. This is the thing. The DNC should not be rigging this system. They don't even pretend anymore. They're not even covert about their swaying the primary season. They're very overt about it. They're going to get...
So that's what's going on, is they're rigging the system for Biden.
They even admit that, Jonathan.
Yeah. Do you think Biden is too old to run for re-election?
No, I'm not going there. I don't think ageism has any place in our in our thinking.
Will you endorse him if he wins the nomination?
I will certainly endorse the candidate who I feel can beat the Republicans. Absolutely.
So, but if he's the Democratic nominee, will you endorse him?
I will do whatever I feel I can do as an American to make sure that the neo-fascist threat that is represented by some aspects of the Republican Party does not win in 2024.
In a blog post talking about possibly running for president recently, you said, change is inevitable in this country. We are either going to have a peaceful revolution or a violent one. What do you mean by that?
Excuse me, did you not cover January 6th?
Yes, so
What is happening in this country is that people who are experiencing vast amounts of economic fear, anxiety, when you have this much economic anxiety and millions of people experiencing that kind of desperation.
Do you think January 6th was about economic anxiety?
No, I did not say that.
Well,
but I do think that the election of President Trump the first time in many ways was, just as I feel that the support of Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump both said to the American people, I understand your rage. I understand you're upset with an obviously economically rigged system. And that is what the Democrats need to offer in 2024. A president who isn't just saying, oh, it's going well, to millions of people for whom nothing like that is true, but rather we understand that you are living at the effect of an unjust economic system, and we are going to change that.
Thanks to John Karl for that. Hi, everyone.
Bum, bum, bum. Okay, so, you know, there it is, folks. There it is, kitty. So, do we think she'll win? No. Is she the worst guru we've discussed on this channel? No. Is she a little weird and, you know, kooky, crazy orb lady? Yes. Yes, she is. And that's okay. she has a right to run. She has a right to, go on TV or doesn't have a right to go on TV, but she has she's getting her 15 minutes right now to talk about issues that I think are important. And, it's nice to see someone who has a little bit different thoughts out there. Now, is it realistic? No, but, half the people running for these offices know they have no chance, or, likely they will not actually be, in the running. Thank you, Joe B. That's my dad's name, Joe B. Thank you so much. I have to check how many, actually, I think I can check it now. Let's see. To see how many members we need to open up the next level emote. I didn't check today. Let's see. Tara, did you check today? No, I didn't check. I don't use a computer because I'm a cat. Let's see. Oh, God. Okay. So it says right now 42 members needed. And I don't know if that's because people had become left the membership because it re-ups every month, or if it's just once you reach the threshold, does it open up, or does it go down again? So if people leave, I don't know. I'll have to consult YouTube for that. But right now, 42 more for the 22nd emoji. Wait, no, that doesn't make sense. It says, as you gain more members, you can upload and share even more emojis. 22 emoji, 42 members needed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. I guess it is 20. Dang. We got a lot of emotes in here. Everyone, raid the chat with, that's not the right term. Spam the chat with your favorite emote that you love, if you're a member. People who aren't members are like, oh, I don't have access. Thank you to Joe B. That is my dad's name, just for the record. I think I said that already, but that's his nickname. Pretty cool. All right. Anyways, thank you again. Thank you to Taro for making an appearance. Her little ear and her tail are making sure that they're being shown. Good news coming soon in the merch department. Hold on. The merch department. Merch is coming. New merch. And thank you to everyone who's been buying the Choose Sadness merch and continues to buy it. Still, that's my first and exciting merch I've ever made and launched into merch making. But the next one is coming. So I'm going to open it up to members first to give everyone a little specialness there, and hopefully they like it. We did some voting and things in the membership about which joke to kind of play on. And so I hope everyone likes it. I really like it. I worked with the designer, that does the graphics on it, and we went back and forth a little bit on what to add and what to do. So I'm very, very happy with the outcome. So I think it'll be cool. And I think, I don't know how to do it exactly or what percentage to do it. So let me think on that. But I think a percentage of the profits will go to the nonprofit that I really like, the Manatee, Save the Manatee Group Club, to support our girl Zelda. We have Zelda. Let's see. Let's check out Zelda real quick. Let's see if Zelda's info has been posted online yet. They release different videos every day, basically, from the nonprofit that we support as a channel. Here. There's Mushu. Mushu is one of the other manatees you can adopt. But we are looking for Zelda, and the way you can tell if it's Zelda, well, they tell you which one it is. But this one's Bama. But Zelda's got a big Z on her back from boats. So let's see. Nope. Doesn't look like it. Margarito. We should have adopted Margarita. I'm just kidding. Zelda's our girl. Margarito is a worthy manatee. Aren't they so cool? I just love them so much. I want this. I want this in my house. Margarito. Let's see what else. Who else is there? Annie had a baby. Who's this one? This is Philip, Patty Doyle, Gator, Lily, Anna, Aqua, and NATO. This is NATO. Oh, I just feel bad that they get injured. This one. This is... Okay, so Amelia and Irma, who are not adoptees, they were there. Zelda does not make many appearances. Zelda, I think, is more in the keys, so it's harder for them to see. Mushu. Mushu gets a lot of love. Aren't they so cute? This is like my little catty. My little catty. Yeah, she's like, ugh. Stop. Okay, here's a little fun fact about manatees. Manatees hear high-pitched sounds really well. They communicate with each other by emitting sounds underwater, best described as chirps, whistles, or squeaks. It is not believed that they are used for navigational purposes, though they are used to maintain contact, especially when manatees are feeding or traveling in turbid water. Most common are vocalizations between mothers and calves. Oh, and that's their ear, that little hole. Someone's like, knew it. Okay, I shart again. People's comments are so funny. My God, I can't stand comments anymore. Except for yours. Your comments are great, and I love them. Parasocially, I love the comments. Do I? Do I love comments?
No.
I love comments.
Bold-faced lie.
Floyd. I don't see. Zelda. Also, I'm pretty sure I'm going to be doing this 5K. It's like a virtual, you can do it, I think it's in Michigan or something, some city, and you can do it there in person, but you can also do it virtually, and you can download, your bib, I think, and then you get a t-shirt and a medal. So I think I'm going to be doing that. Yeah, Harrison Township in Michigan. So if you're from that area, Michigan, you can do it in person. It's on October 7th, so we got a lot of time to get ready, to get running prepared. I've been trying to train for a half marathon. I'm not even to do one officially, but I've been doing the Nike Run app, and it's going well. But I think doing a couple 5Ks for fun might be a good experience as well. It's been a while, but my knees have been hurting much more running longer distances. I will say, I ran yesterday. Oh, look at the baby. Oh, the baby. A little baby. Here's a fun fact. Manatees are born. They are gray-black in color, and within a month, they change to gray. Manatee adults range in color from gray to brownish gray, and sometimes even appear green. Phyllis. Okay. Patty Doyle. Now we're going way back in time. There's manatee's toes. They got toenails. Floyd. Millie. Gator. Whiskers. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I already looked at all these. There was no Zelda. They release them ever so often. Aqua. That's cute. Doc. All right. Well, we'll keep looking and hoping and praying, and the universe will deliver Zelda to our doorstep, as long as you live in a brackish water that is warm. So yes. So when that comes out and is official, I will let everyone know. If you'd like to join the membership, please do. Thank you everyone for gifting those memberships. That's awesome. I know a lot of people want to join but can't, or they are just able to thanks to the support of others donating them. So I appreciate that. And also, you weren't being a dick when you gave people memberships. All right, it's time to sing my song. I have to download one real quick because that America song was way too fast. Way too fast for me. It is too fast for me, so I got to find a song that's a little bit America. Oops. I spelled it Ameria. And then we'll come back again next week. This is called Miss America. Hold on. Oh boy. Okay. I have the perfect song for this moment. It might be a nightmare. All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for watching. Now go out and vote in a year and a half. Okay, bye. See you. Carol, say goodbye. Say goodbye. Thank you. Peace. We're feeling patriotic tonight. And we just want to give thanks to the Pancake Breakfast Club, who bravely survived internet ups and downs and controversies, Reddit communities, YouTube comment sections. It's tough out there. And we just want to say, Rainy Cannon, you are a true patriot. Starry Nights. The Starry Nights, Nicole Campbell is bright. Kenna Bay is the best. And Charlotte knows the rest. Angela Arnold is cool. Marley Hannon is no fool. Akonzel is a cool tool. And Katie's nice. Sounds like the Titanic, ironically. Jim Cameron? Jimmy? Is that you? Floating by in your underwater craft? Joms, Tiffany, and Gerald Marie. Alaska Blatundra is here, 'cause that was a late addition to our country. Crystal G is a G. She wouldn't be allowed in Matthew McConaughey's life. Lindsay Walton is awesome because they're on this list. Kimberly Cossey, she doesn't like Frosties. From Wendy in Wonderland 66. Do you like them? Wendy's is okay, she says. She prefers Burger King. Brianna Nicole. This sounds like a Christmas song. Carasoto. Did you have to go, or are you here listening? I don't know why I couldn't be a singer, a professional. It's been my dream. Louise V. I have one thing to say to thee. Heather Hope says nope, nope. Please stop singing. Dave Kelly is nice and gives great advice. Sign up for his course called Scamming for Dummies. He doesn't have that course, I'm just kidding. But it'd be cool. Not Jenna Cash does rule. And El Cholo's kid. He wants to win their presidential bid. But we're going to support gurus who want to be president. Blaze Goddess is manifesting a win for everyone. We're gonna take on the White House. This collective group of Pancake Breakfast Club warriors will together lead democracy. Sorry for that, but I appreciate you sticking around till the end. Goodbye. Thank you very much. Talk to you guys later. See ya.